What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Playmakers Corner podcast. I am your host for today, Simon Villanos, aka Coach V, and this is week 11 of the NAIA Women's Flag Football season here. This is your recap, and we got postseason play here. We got conference tournaments this year. They were all in 1 week, which I want to say might have been the first time ever, but that does make it easier for us. And so we're going to recap all of those games, what went down, who are your conference championships in the two major conferences that do have a women's flag football. And then, this is a pretty jam-packed episode. We're going to also talk about Playmakers of the Week this week, since there are two conference tournaments. We're going to have two Playmakers of the Week this week, so we'll do that. And then we're going to react to conference awards, both in the Sun Conference and KCAC. Do want to talk about that, touch on that, on this episode. And then to close this thing out, we're going to talk about our own awards here on the podcast, joined with NAIA F-ball, NAIA football. You know, those guys, they cover NAIA football, both men's and women's, extremely well. And so we're going to talk, I guess I'm just going to talk about all the players that we have in consideration for our best position player awards and whatnot, best players at each position and all that great stuff. And then we'll go ahead and announce the final four here and where you could vote for these great players. But without further ado, let's hop into this recap here. We're going to go ahead and start with recapping the entire Sun Conference tournament. Time stamps will be available, so, feel free to skip around, but I would listen to the whole thing. It's a lot of great football. But anyways, going to the Sun Conference here, it was held in Thomasville, Georgia, home of the number 1 seed Thomas Nighthawks here. And in this first game, that number 1 seed Nighthawks would face off with the Weber Warriors, number 4, coming off of a big win last week to go ahead and make this tournament here and lock that down. And so let's hop into this game. Weber starts on offense here after an incompletion on first down. On second down, Sam Wilson tries to go over the middle here for a pass. She is kind of under pressure as well, but that is intercepted by Nakara Brown. And so just like that, the Nighthawks start in the red zone to start this game here with about 11 minutes 18 seconds left here. And on the very first play here, Alexa Wilson rolls right and finds Kiara Knight, who backpedals in to the end zone to make it 6-0, just like that. On the extra point, we have the Kiana Cole Janae Scott combo, and it's Kiana Cole who rolls right and eventually finds Kiara Knight in the back of the end zone to make it 7-0. Thomas going up early here. Now for Weber, they take over with 11 minutes 10 seconds here, and here's what happens. Sam Wilson finds Kayla Burrows on the curl, who gets loose and also draws a holding penalty as well. Gets some good yardage already, but then you go ahead and tag on the couple of yards there with that holding penalty. And so that's actually a first down past midfield when all is said and done. But Weber, they struggle a little bit. They have a couple of short plays here, an overthrow, and then on 3rd and 11 here, Wilson finds Breasia Robinson, who does get a good gain here, but only makes it 4th and 3. And so 4th and 3 on the edge of the red zone. Weber looking to extend this drive. Here is what happens. Wilson drops back and tries to go deep to Kayla Burrows, who looks like she might have had a step at first, but Britt Delva here, the veteran, goes ahead and gets a pretty big pass deflection here, a huge pass deflection, because I think that would have been a touchdown if she didn't get there, and that makes it a turnover on downs. And so Thomas, they get the ball back with 8:39 left here in the first quarter. Now let's fast forward to 2nd and 13 here. It's a check down to Margarita Pena that makes it 3rd down here. But a play later, they do get a pretty good gain. It does come down to a 4th and 1 situation. And so on 4th and 1, Wilson rolls right. It just makes a bad decision here. Tries to throw it over the middle, throws kind of across her body, and Kayla Burrows picks that off and returns it 39 yards to the house here. On the extra point, Wilson rolls right and finds Hayden Roop near the sideline to tie this game at 7-7. Now 6:45 left here. Weber just tied it here at 6:45 here. Thomas has the ball. They're trying to retake that lead here. And so here we go. They get the ball. Alexa Wilson finds Giselle Jones on the slant. That goes for a first down. 2nd and 1 here, though, a play later. Wilson finds Jones again, who makes a defender miss and then takes it into the red zone for a huge 20-plus yard reception. Looks like she might have been able to break this loose, or it looked like she might have been able to do that. But she is stopped a little short. And so let's go ahead and move to 3rd down here. Move forward to 3rd down here. 3rd down, Wilson finds Margarita Pena on the out, who then pitches it to Kiana Cole, who walks it in for the touchdown. Great play design here, making it 13-7. Cole once more goes ahead and runs it up the left side to make it 14-7 as Thomas retakes the lead. Now 3:35 left, still in the first quarter, a very explosive first quarter, mind you. 2nd down here, ball is tipped up by Janae Scott, but not quite intercepted, and so that does bring up 3rd down, still in that first quadrant, Weber is. And on 3rd down, Wilson, under pressure, tries to throw it over the middle here again. But, well, not again, sorry, but it's the 2nd time a quarterback named Wilson tries to throw it over the middle, and it is Sam Wilson who throws it over the middle. But this time, Janae Scott gets a huge pick, and not only gets a huge pick, but returns it to the house to make it 20-7. Cole once more goes ahead and runs it in to make it 21-7. By the way, Kiana Cole with all their extra points so far here in the game, and only in the first quarter. But like I said, Thomas does take that 2-score lead over Weber here in the first quarter. Now, Weber, about 2 minutes, 19 seconds left. They're not out of it, but they got to go to work here. And so 3rd and 1, Wilson under pressure has to find Brianna Cam, who is stopped immediately, but it is enough for a first down. Moving on into the second quarter, though, as this drive continues, Wilson finds Caitlin Sigmundy on the out, who then goes ahead and slips both Janae Scott and Brittany Delva for a huge 30-plus yard play. Great play here by Caitlin Sigmundy to go ahead and give Weber a much-needed splash play. But once more, it comes down to 3rd down here. On 3rd down, Wilson tries to go deep to Roop, but it is almost picked by Aaliyah Wood, and so that does bring up 4th down here on the edge of the red zone. They've been here before, but here's what happens. Wilson tries to go deep, and this one is intercepted by Giselle Jones. And so, for now, Thomas maintains their 21-7 lead. Now, on offense here, it doesn't go super well. Kind of led by a couple of sacks here. Sacks by Jasmine Henry. She gets 2 in a row on 2nd and 3rd down. That really puts Thomas in a tough situation where they are forced to punt it. And so Weber takes over with about 5:45 left. 4th and 4 here. Here's what happens. Wilson just throws the crow to Hayden Roop. She gets them a first down. That puts them in the red zone as Weber is cooking. Now, after a holding penalty, it looks like, on Thomas, it is 1st and 1. And on 1st and 1, Wilson throws left to Breasia Robinson, who brings it in and makes it 21-13. On the extra point, Wilson then rolls out left before finding Jasmine Henry in the flats to make it 21-14. I do want to say on this drive, Jasmine Henry had multiple big catches on checkdowns where she really put Weber in an excellent spot. So just keep that in mind. Now, Thomas, they would get the ball back with about 2:12 left, but after getting a first down on a hitch route to Brittany Delva, they would eventually stall out. False start kind of hurting their momentum, so they would punt it. And I mean, at this point, Weber has 24.6 seconds left. They try to get something going, but a sack by Jada Reese does delay them a little bit, and eventually they are stopped here. And so at halftime, Thomas leads Weber slightly here, 21-14, but they do get the ball back here in the third quarter, and they are looking to extend this drive. here in the third quarter. And so let's hop into this first drive here. Thomas with the ball. Wilson finds Giselle Jones on the slant, who gets some really good yards after the catch. That gets him close to midfield here. Couple plays later, Wilson finds Aaliyah Wood, who makes a defender miss and gets a good gain of about 15 or so. That does put them past midfield, but most importantly, gets them close to the red zone. It's in fact 1st and 2 when all is said and done. A play later, it is 2nd down, and Wilson, she's under pressure, but she goes back to Wood over the middle, who goes ahead and puts them in the red zone. So here we go, Thomas in the red zone. Let's move on a couple plays here. They don't get the touchdown right away. It does come down to a 4th down situation, but here's what happens. Kiana Cole subs in at quarterback, Janae Scott in at running back. Cole goes left on the option before pitching it to Scott, who walks it in and makes it a 27-14 game. Extra point is no good on this one, and so for now they got to settle for this 27-14 game. Now, Weber, they do get the ball with about 6:16 left here, and they get a pretty good drive here. First off, a slant to Caitlin Sigmundy would give them their first down. Following that, Wilson goes over the middle to Brazier Robinson, who brings in a nice catch in traffic. That gets them past midfield at that point. But unfortunately, it does come down to a 4th and 9 situation on the edge of the red zone. But here's what happens. Wilson rolls right and finds Caleb Burrows in the red zone here. Not in the end zone, but in the red zone. And so that's where we pick up here in the 4th quarter. But in the 4th quarter, Weber, they have this drive. They're trying to cut it to 1 score here. Things don't quite go so well. They have a couple drops and short incompletions. That brings up 4th down here. And on 4th down, Wilson throws it to Robinson, who then pitches it to Sigmundy, trying to get something to work since they can't put one in the end zone here. And unfortunately, she is pulled short, and so that is a turnover on downs. Now 9:26 left here. Thomas looking to really sand this thing away, use up as much of the clock as possible, and here is how they do it. Kiana Cole in at quarterback, Janae Scott in at running back. You got to remember, at this point, they're pretty backed up against their own end zone because they just got a turnover on downs, and so they got to pretty much go the length of the field. And on the first play, power option right, it looks like, power option left, and Cole pitches it to Scott, who cuts it back and reverses, makes a player miss, and she is getting downfield here, burning this defense, using that speed, and she goes all the way to the house, 76 yards for the dagger, and Thomas goes up 33-14. Extra points no good, but at this point, I mean, that is the backbreaker here, as Janae Scott just rips open a huge run here, which you don't see very often, especially here in the Sun Conference. But Janae Scott with, I would have to think, possibly a career high, at least on this run here. That run was a career high, so there you go. Now, this game would basically be over. I mean, Weber would try to drive down the field. Kiara Knight would get another interception. And then Thomas, I mean, they would not be able to punch it into the end zone to extend their lead after this. And so that is your final score. Thomas defeats Weber 33-14, and they punch their ticket back to the Sun Conference Championship. Player of this game, in my opinion, has to be Janae Scott. I mean, she had a pick six and a huge 76-yard touchdown run. That went a long way in securing this thing for Thomas. But let me go ahead and look at this box score here, read off some stats before I forget. Let's start with Weber. Sam Wilson, 29 of 49, 232 yards, 1 touchdown, 4 interceptions. Just a tough time out there trying to throw the ball against this real tough defense. On offense here, Hayden Roop, 38 yards, 2 receptions. Caitlin Sigmundy, I believe, was the second receiver with 3 receptions, 44 yards. But it was Brazier Robinson who actually led here with 8 receptions, 47 yards, and a touchdown here, the lone offensive touchdown. As I look through this, Kayla Burrows, she's at the bottom of this list, but she had 5 receptions, 57 yards, so she actually led in receiving yards and was second in receptions there, still putting up a pretty good fight here. But on defense for Weber. I mean, they had some issues here. Struggled a little bit. Jasmine Henry, though, 4 tackles, 2 sacks. Those 2 sacks were pretty clutch at that point. Denise Garcia also had a sack here, I believe. Yeah, that was it. And then Kayla Burrows, 5 tackles, tied with the lead with Samantha Gonzalez, who also had 5. But Kayla Burrows also had an interception, pick 6 that she returned. So there you go there. Those are Weber's stats. And then for Thomas here, Lexa Wilson, 20 of 27, pretty efficient, 173 yards, a touchdown and a pick though, but still, pretty efficient, I would say. Janae Scott, only 2 attempts, but 77 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns actually, as she did pick up another one, I believe. So there you go there. As far as receiving goes, Giselle Jones, the lead receiver, 4 receptions, 53 yards. Kiara Knight had that 1 touchdown, 3 receptions, 32 yards for her. Now, defensively, I mean, it's all hands on deck when it's Thomas. 7 tackles for Janae Scott and a pick 6. So she did her thing, obviously. Giselle Jones, Kiara Knight also had picks. Nakara Brown also had a pick. Aaliyah Wood with a sack here. And then I want to say Brittany Delva was second in tackles with 6. But your player of the game for this one was Janae Scott. She was huge in punching them into the Sun Conference Championship. Now let's go ahead and move on to number 2 Keiser versus number 3 St. Thomas. The winner plays Thomas here in the Sun Conference Championship. Here's what happens. Oh, by the way, St. Thomas beat Keiser last week, but Keiser did beat them earlier on in the season. So good game regardless, but St. Thomas, they start with the ball here. And let's go to 2nd and inches. Holly Neer at quarterback throws the slant to Rayona Baker. That's a first down. Following that, Holly Neer lofts one deep, and Jada Graham makes a huge contested catch for a big-time 40-yard play here. Also tag on a holding penalty by Keiser. That is enough to put them in the red zone. But once they hit the red zone, they run into some issues here. First, a sack by Emma Wagman. That would push them back. 2nd down here, they would throw a hitch to Kaylee Miller. That would go for a short gain, so that brings up 3rd down here. And on 3rd down, Neer goes deep, but there is 2 penalties on this throw here, which I assume was incomplete. And so here's what happens. It's a PI, which I want to say was waved off, but there was also a roughing the passer. And so they take the roughing the passer call and move up just a little bit. On 3rd down, though, pass is incomplete. And then on 4th down here, they really needed this one. Holly Neer tries to throw it. She does. It gets out there. And it's a great pass breakup by Samaya Bryant. So that's a turnover on downs. And Keiser takes over on offense with 7 minutes, 55 seconds left. Now, after a nice play by Emma Wagman to make it a pretty solid 3rd and 1 situation, they go ahead and throw the hitch route to Kennedy Foster, who gets them a first down. But it does come down to a 3rd and 1 situation after another nice gain by Emma Wagenman here for about 15 yards or so. And so 3rd and 1, Roden tries to throw it here. And she does, but it's a little low, and so it's incomplete here. So that brings up 4th down, and they go for it. Keiser goes for it. It's a double pass, which eventually, I guess it becomes a triple pass because it comes back to Roden, and she throws it. But this pass is dropped, just a rare drop, honestly. And so that's a turnover on downs. And so St. Thomas gets the ball back with 4:43 left. But once again, this drive early on doesn't start super great, as on 2nd down, Emma Wagman gets a pretty big sack. And so that brings up 3rd down here. And on 3rd down here, evades the pressure and then gets it to Tiffany Walker. She gets pretty good yardage here, but she is stopped short here. And it looks like St. Thomas is about to go 3 and out here, but on 4th down, they do pull Keiser off sides, and so that results in another 4th down play here, and obviously they're moved up, and so they're going for it. And on 4th down, Holly Neer steps up, evades the pressure, resets before throwing, and throws a beautiful post route here to Kayla Alvarez to go ahead and give St. Thomas a 6-0 lead. On the extra point, Near finds Dominique Parks on the drag route to make it 7-0. And so here we go. Keiser looking to tie this thing up with about 2 minutes, 2 seconds left here in the first quarter. Roden rips one to Marissa Rubino up the seam for a big 15-plus yard reception. Big splash play. It's 1st and 3 here, but on first down, it's incomplete. So let's go to second down here. On second down, Roden tries to throw it, but there's a pass breakup by Miranda Fairdes, which is almost intercepted, but dropped, and so it's incomplete. Third down here, Roden tries to throw one deep, I want to say, but it's a little too high of a pass, and so that brings up 4th and 4, and they will run that 4th and 4 play here in the second quarter, because that's when time expired. And so in the second quarter, they just switch sides. 4th and 4, Roden tries to find Sophia Caprio on the hitch, and she does. She brings it in and gets them past midfield. But moving on to a 3rd and 1 situation, once again set up by a solid game by Emma Wagenman here. Roden tries to throw it, but it is slightly off the mark here, and Miranda Fairdes goes ahead and gets a clutch interception. Missed it the first time, got it the second time here, and ends that drive. Now, St. Thomas to get the ball back, but they basically go 3 and out here. An illegal blocking penalty would also hurt them, which is why they went 3 and out for the most part. And so Keiser, they will get the ball back with 7 minutes left here. And on first down, Roden scrambles, gets another first down here. It is worth noting that NAIA Leon did come out after that play, so she wouldn't be in for the rest of this drive, I believe. And so following that, Jasmine Roden rolls out right, finds Marissa Rubino for a gain of 14. That brings up second down here. And on second down, Jasmine Roden, she just scrambles, gets the first down. Now they are in the red zone here. A couple plays later, it is 3rd and 7 here. Roden evades the rush and fits it into just a tight spot here, tight window here, where Brenna Ramirez, the freshman, makes a tough catch, physical all-hands catch to make it 7-6. But unfortunately, Keiser can't tie it up as there was a pass breakup. And so for now, St. Thomas holds the lead with about 3 minutes, 47 seconds left here. Let's go to 4th down here. On 4th down, here is what happens. Holly Neer drops back and goes deep to Jada Graham on the post, who makes it 13-6 on a huge splash play here. And so St. Thomas, they retake the lead. But Keiser, they still got 48 seconds left. And so let's fast forward to 4th down for Keiser, trying to extend this drive, trying to get something going right before the half. And here's what happens. Jasmine Roden avoids the pressure and finds Kennedy Foster over the middle, who goes ahead and takes them across midfield here, and she is basically held. And so that's a holding penalty on St. Thomas. So go ahead and tag on some extra yards to that big play already. And so 1st down here, edge of the red zone. Roden finds Caprio, the freshman, over the middle, who goes ahead and hands it off to Ramirez, it looks like, and she goes and gets the 1st down. Now they are in the red zone with a little bit of time left. Moving forward to 2nd down here, Roden then finds Adriana Rodriguez on the out to make it 13-12. Roden would then find Kennedy Foster on the drag route, making it 13-13, tying it up going into the second half. Now, in the second half, Keiser, they do get the ball off here, but a clutch sack by NAIA Leon would eventually force a punt. And so St. Thomas will get the ball here, and on 3rd and 2, Near throws the drag route to Tiffany Walker, who gets good separation, by the way, and gets a solid 13-ish yard gain past midfield. Right after that, Near finds Kaylee Miller on the slant. She gets some good chunky yardage, but it's on 2nd down where Near finds Graham on the slant. She goes ahead and puts them in the red zone here. So here we go. They are working with something, but once more, a couple incompletions later, it comes down to 4th down here. On 4th down, Near, she throws it, but it's a great pass deflection by Kennedy Foster. And so it stays tied for now here. Let's go to 3 minutes 50 seconds left in the third. Keiser, they want the ball, they want the lead, and they do have the ball. And on second down here, Roden finds Rubino on the curl, who makes a low catch, a real tough catch there, but all hands there by Rubino. That gives them a first down. But following that, NAIA Leon at rusher goes ahead, rushes Roden, bats the ball, and actually bats it to herself. She catches this one and returns it to the house for a 21-yard pick six. Another time where a rusher knocks down a pass and intercepts it and brings it to the house herself. That happened twice last week. But this would be clutch, as it would give St. Thomas a 19-13 lead. The extra point was no good there. Now Keiser, they would get back on offense. Still plenty of time, 1:58 seconds left. But they would go 3 and out here. Really good defense by St. Thomas on that drive. NAIA Leon really forcing Roden to get the ball out quickly. And so let's move on to the fourth quarter here. St. Thomas, they have the ball. It does come down to a 4th and 2 situation, and here's what happens. They're going for it. They call an end around to Graham. It looks like maybe she got in barely, but the refs call her short, and so that's a key turnover on downs. And so Keiser takes over, looking to tie this game to start. And so they go ahead and attempt the double pass here, really using both their quarterbacks. And it's Haley Young who goes ahead and finds Adrian Rodriguez, who makes a player miss and gets Keiser across midfield, also with a fresh set of downs. Moving on a couple plays, it's third down here. They do another double pass, and this time Young, she finds Kennedy Foster near the right sideline, who, by the way, makes an excellent catch, but doesn't quite get the first down. So it is 4th down here. And on 4th down, they have both their quarterbacks out there. They attempt the double pass again. Roden throws it to Young, but this time Young, she just runs for the first down instead of throwing it. And so just like that, Keiser, they are in the red zone here. But let's go ahead and fast forward a couple plays. There is a personal foul on St. Thomas that does put them basically on the goal line. It's first down again here, and here's what happens. First down on the goal line. Roden finds Kennedy Foster on the drag. That ties this game here at 19-19. On the extra point with a chance to retake the lead here, or take the lead here, Keiser's Jasmine Roden, she's flushed out right. She tries to throw it to the back of the end zone here, but it is knocked down by St. Thomas. And so St. Thomas, they get the ball with about 6:23 left here. Obviously, they're looking for a score to retake this lead. And here's what happens to start this drive. Near finds Kaylee Miller on the curl. She goes and gets the first down. Play later, Near goes over the middle to Graham, who makes a great catch, and then basically just finds a corner and burns this defense for a big 20-yard play that would go ahead and put them in the red zone. Following an incompletion, it's second down, and Holly Near, she finds Dominique Parks inside, who gets a solid gain of 10. That brings up third down here, third and manageable in the red zone. Near throws a slant to a wide open Kaylee Miller to retake the lead, 25-19. Extra point is no good. There's about 3 minutes 9 seconds left. Plenty of time for Keiser to retake the lead. And to start this out, Haley Young on the double pass finds Sophia Caprio here. She finds Marissa Rubino here for the first down. And then a couple plays later, it's third down again. Haley Young, she finds Kennedy Foster once more, who gets them past midfield. And so Keiser using both their quarterbacks a lot here. A lot of double passes, just trying to buy time so that the play can develop and so that they have a little bit extra time as well as they drive down the field. But back to the action here. Double pass once more. This time, Young throws it back to Roden, who then finds Brenna Ramirez for a nice gain here. Great catch, kind of over the middle of the field. And so here we go. That goes for a solid gain. Let's fast forward to third down. Roden throws it to Young, who goes ahead and just runs it in this time once more to go ahead and put them in the red zone. Second time she's done this game, and here in the fourth quarter. But things stall out a little bit here. You have a double pass that goes to Brenna Ramirez. That's another great catch. But you have an incompletion. That brings up third down here. On third down, Roden rolls out right. Throws a heater to Ramirez, who is wide open, but she could not bring it in. So that brings up fourth down here with about 25.4 seconds left in this game. High pressure situations here. Here is what happened. Roden is forced to check down to a Haley Young, who kind of looks like she tries to throw it here, but it is blocked / knocked out of her hands by Jada Graham. And so the refs, though, a penalty on St. Thomas for a personal foul. I want to say it was because of that play. And so what looked like to be the end of the game is a repeat of fourth down. So Keiser gets another chance. And on the second chance, Jasmine Roden missiles one into Kennedy Foster, who makes the diving catch for the touchdown here, tying this game 25-25 with 13.9 seconds left. On the extra point with a chance to take the lead and potentially win the game, Roden is looking, she's scanning. There's nothing there. She was forced to run it, and she's stopped short. And so here we go. St. Thomas, 13.9 seconds left here. It's only tied, so, they're not going to lose if they don't get a score here, but they do have a little bit of time. And so here is what happens. Near finds Jada Graham, who spins out of a couple of tackles and gets a solid gain of 15 or so yards. That, I believe, is a first down. So 6.4 seconds left. Following that, Near throws one deep to Tashumba Washington right up the seam, and she makes this catch, a big play, and also takes a hit, which will be a personal foul on Keiser that will put St. Thomas near the red zone here. It's 1st and 1 with about half a second left here. That foul, that penalty just being huge, and so half a second left. 1st down and 1. They're maybe 21 yards away here. And here's what happens. Near, she gets the snap. This is the last play of regulation. She lofts one deep down the right side here. Double coverage. Kaylee Miller. She goes ahead and rises up. Makes the catch here. Comes down with the football. Has possession. And calls game. That is the game winner there. Holly Near to Kaylee Miller for a chance at the Sun Conference title. St. Thomas defeats Keiser in the last seconds, 31-25, and St. Thomas will be going to the Sun Conference Championship to face off with Thomas, who they've already beat one time this season so far. But jeez, man, just what a game here. Excellent game. Keiser, they really battled back. They did a good job here. But at the end of the day, it was St. Thomas. I mean, they fought to the end, trying to get an opportunity to end this thing early, and they got that opportunity. That would end up being huge for them. And, I mean, 13.9 seconds to basically go down the field in 3 plays. I know on one of them there was also a penalty, which, I mean, obviously in hindsight that is pretty costly when you look at it. It's a 21-yard throw, so it's not like I wouldn't call it quite a Hail Mary, but I mean, it's pretty impressive still, but it's not exactly the farthest throw. And so I mean, Keiser just kind of hurt themselves there, and even at the end that pass was double covered. They just couldn't come down with it. And so, unfortunately, Keiser goes down here. Now, I did try to find some stats. Couldn't find anything for both squads here. And so, I'm basically just going to wrap this thing up. Player of the game, I think, has to be Kaylee Miller. Look, the game winner, that is absolutely huge. She obviously made a lot of plays throughout this game as well. But that game winner, I mean, that sent them to the Sun Conference Championship, which is absolutely huge for St. Thomas. Now let's get to the Sun Conference Championship here. Thomas versus St. Thomas here. Met twice First time around, Thomas beat them at home. Next time around, St. Thomas beat them at home. This time they are in Georgia. And it should be a good game here between number 1 Thomas in their conference, by the way, and number 3 St. Thomas. So let's go ahead and hop into this one. St. Thomas to get the ball to start. And things start out pretty well here. Holly Neer, she goes ahead and finds Tiffany Walker over the middle for a nice first down. But then the St. Thomas offense sputters a little bit. They do get a nice out route to Parks that goes for 3. But on second down, it's another short check down. And on third down, it's an incompletion, which eventually brings up 4th and long. And so they have to punt it. At this point, Thomas gets it with about 9 minutes and 32 seconds left here in this game. And let's go to third down here on this drive. Alexa Wilson finds Margarita Pena on the out. She goes ahead and makes a player miss and gets them past midfield here, also with a new set of downs. Moving on to 3rd and 15 on the same drive. Wilson throws it, but this throw does end up out of bounds here. But Wilson does get her arm hit on the throw, which probably affected that accuracy. And so that's a roughing the passer call. And so that's an automatic first here. But not in the red zone yet. It's like 1st and 1, so they're on the edge. But that changes when Alexa Wilson just goes ahead and rolls left and walks into the red zone. Not end zone, but red zone with a fresh set of downs. Now, after a couple plays here, it does come down to a 4th and 1 situation. Keanu Cole almost got in on 3rd down here, but was stopped short. And so 4th and 1, they go ahead and put Alexa Wilson back in at quarterback. And here's what happens. She throws the drag route to Britt Delva, who gives Thomas the first lead here, 6-0 at the 2-minute 44-second mark. Now, the extra point is no good, so Thomas just maintains that lead for now. But let's go to St. Thomas here. They get the ball back with 2:44 left. On second down, Holly Neer checks it down to Dominique Parks. She gets them a first down here. Following that, Neer, she looks like she's rolling left, it looks like she's going through her reads here. Comes back to a read and tries to throw it, but the ball is tipped up here, and it is intercepted by Britt Delva, who gets a really nice return that puts Thomas in the red zone to start that drive. But once more, they're in the red zone, and once again, it comes down to a 4th down situation here. St. Thomas really looking for a stop, but Thomas looking to go up by 2 scores. Let's go to the second quarter where that 4th down play happens here right at the beginning. Alexa Wilson rolls right and finds Margarita Pena for a 7-yard touchdown. Nice throw here to go ahead and make it a 12-0 lead. On the extra point, Wilson throws the slant to Giselle Jones. That makes it a 13-0 lead as St. Thomas takes over with 11:53 left. And on this drive, they got to get something going, and they start out pretty all right here. Neer finds Kaylee Miller for a nice catch for 10 or so yards. That is a first down. But following that, Neer, she is sacked by Britt Delva, so that does push them back a little bit here. But on the next play, Neer finds Kaylee Miller on the drag, and it's incomplete, but there's an illegal contact penalty thrown on Thomas, and so that moves them up here. And so that does bring up second down here. And on second down, they go ahead and throw the out route to Parks, who gets into space. That's a good job of doing that, by the way, and gets St. Thomas past midfield. But once more, it comes down to a 4th and 2 situation after a pretty clutch stop by Sanaya Glover here, stopping Parks to make it 4th and 2. And by the way, Sanaya Glover got the start this game, so she is over at corner, I believe, instead of Aaliyah Wood, who would go in on defense, but would get a lot of snaps at rusher, I felt. So just keep that in mind. But it's 4th and 2. After a great Sanaya Glover play, here's what happens. Holly Neer under pressure finds Parks, who makes a great one-handed snag here. Not much you could do about it. I thought she was going to drop it because it was a little too far out. But she makes the catch, and that puts them in the red zone here. Now on first down, the pass is incomplete, but there is a flag on Thomas for pass interference, and so that moves St. Thomas up 10 yards, and that's also a repeat of first down. And on that second first down try in the red zone, Holly Neer looks to the back of the end zone, throws a nice pass here, a nice layered pass to Tiffany Walker, who brings it in, and they go ahead and cut into this lead just a little bit, making it 13-6. Now, on the extra point, it is incomplete, but once more, there's another pass interference call, and so St. Thomas here, they decide to go for 2 because, they already got the penalty yards, and so they tag that on. And on this try here, Neer throws it right, but it is picked off by NAIA Glover, and so that's erased. And so St. Thomas not able to cut into this lead any further, but still making it a one-score game. And so 5 minutes, 55 seconds left when Thomas gets the ball back, and here's what happens here. Wilson rolls right and gets the ball to Aaliyah Wood. It was really close. It narrowly misses a defender who almost picked it, but Aaliyah Wood makes a great catch and gets a great gain of 15 plus yards. I want to say plus a first down. So there you go. On second down, though, later on in this drive, Wilson checks down to Pena. Once again, almost picked off by Miranda Fairdes. Maybe a missed opportunity there, to be honest with you. And Pena goes ahead and gets a first down past midfield. Following that, though, she does scramble for a couple of yards here, but on 2nd and 18, it's an overthrow, so that's incomplete. Third down here, they do get St. Thomas to jump off sides, and so Thomas moves up a couple of yards, so that brings up third down again. And on this down, Wilson rolls right and finds Aaliyah Wood once more, who makes kind of a tough catch, but it only goes for 5 yards, and so it is 4th and 7 here on the edge of the red zone as the clock is winding down. And on 4th down, here's what happens. Lexa Wilson rolls right, throws it, and finds Kiara Knight in stride, and Kiara Knight makes a tough catch here. Great coverage here, and it was a pretty physical play, but she makes the tough catch for a 30-plus yard touchdown to go ahead, or at least I believe it was a 30-plus yard touchdown to go ahead and extend this Thomas lead 20-6. There was an unsportsmanlike penalty thrown on Thomas after that play, but that would be enforced on the St. Thomas offensive possession, not this extra point attempt. And so on the extra point here, Wilson, she finds Kiara Knight again on the slant. That makes it 21-6. Now, all of that happens, but there's still 59 seconds left for St. Thomas, so a chance to go ahead and score here. They've done it in less. So here's what happens on the first play. Holly Neer finds Tashumba Washington on the post route. That goes for about 15 or so. Moving on to 2nd and 5 here, Neer finds Graham, which I believe was her first reception of the day. But she goes ahead and makes a count, gets them past the midfield just like that. So past midfield, first down here. Holly Neer steps up, evades the pressure, resets, and fires to Tashumba Washington on the 42-yard touchdown pass. I want to say it was a post route, but it definitely could have been a seam route. Regardless, Neer hit her in stride. Washington with a step, and that makes it 20-12 here. Now, unfortunately, on the extra point, the out route is just slightly out of reach for Tashumba Washington, but St. Thomas will take that 20-12 game here rather than a 20-6 game. And so in the third quarter, Thomas, they will get the ball here, looking to continue their success and extend this lead. And here's what happens. Wilson on 2nd and inches goes ahead and runs left before throwing it back to Kiana Cole, who gets a nice couple more yards here, but most importantly does get the first down. Fast forwarding to 3rd and 10 here, Wilson completes a great pass to Aaliyah Wood, who makes a pretty physical catch here. Just a great catch by her through traffic and contact, and she does draw an illegal contact penalty, I believe. And so that play, along with the penalty yards, would push Thomas past midfield. And so here we go, past midfield. Wilson basically rolls all the way out left. It looks like she's about to run out of room, but she goes ahead and turns it upfield and does get Thomas into the red zone there. So here we go in the red zone. Thomas looking to extend this lead. It is second down here. They go ahead and run a direct snap to Kiana Cole. She gets a nice short gain, a great flag pull here by Mayerly Keon. And so that brings up third down for Thomas. And on third down, Wilson throws the out to Kiana Cole, who pulls out the bag here, makes a couple players miss. Just great playmaking here by Cole, finding a way to get it done and gets into the end zone, making it 26-12. Now, the extra point once more is no good, but they do have a 2-score lead once more. Now, St. Thomas, and unfortunately, to start this drive, a unsportsmanlike penalty is thrown on them. And so that's what they start with here. But Holly Neer, she goes ahead and finds Jada Graham, and she gets a lot of those yards back and makes it a solid 2nd-and-1 situation here. On 2nd-and-1, Neer throws the out to Parks here. That's good for a first down. Now, on the next play, Holly Neer throws the post 2 to Shumba Washington, who brings in a tough catch once more, but there's also a penalty here, thrown on Thomas. There's 2 penalties thrown on Thomas, one for unsportsmanlike and one for pass interference. And so they go ahead and accept the penalty. That would give them more yards, I want to say. And that penalty, or maybe it was both penalties. I was a little confused there. But regardless, I mean, that was really tough, because that would go ahead and put St. Thomas past midfield and into the red zone here. Just an excellent play for Shumba Washington and St. Thomas, but obviously just a huge break for St. Thomas, just getting some of that yards just on penalties. And so here in the red zone, here's what happens. Holly Neer steps up, and this time she goes deep to Kaylee Miller, who has a couple of steps on her defensive back here. Looks like it was just a blown coverage, and so Miller makes it a 26-18 game here. Neer then finds Jada Graham on the slant, who makes it a 26-19 game here. St. Thomas still trailing, but still in this game, very much in this game. And so 4 minutes, 7 seconds left here, still in the third quarter. Here's what happens. Wilson finds Pena over the middle. That goes for a first down. But Wilson on second down tries to go deep here, and Shumba Washington is waiting for her. And she gets a huge interception to give St. Thomas the ball back and kill that Thomas drive. 1 minute 58 seconds left here in the third quarter, that is. So plenty of time. St. Thomas, they're on the edge of the red zone. Second down here. Holly Neer tries to go deep, but this time it is Thomas's safety, Kiara Knight, who gets a huge interception. That goes for a touchback, and so she erases that chance right there. Now, there is a key sack here by Lanaya Leone to end this third quarter for Thomas, which does put them in a little bit of a tough spot here. But going into the fourth quarter here, they go ahead and sub in Kiana Cole, and they're just looking to go ahead and just run this clock, basically. And so they run all those plays with a Cole to do that. And so here's what happens. Around 8 minutes left, Kiana Cole gets a great rush right. That will put them right up near the first down. So it's like 3rd and short here. And on 3rd down, Cole rolls left and finds Margarita Pena, who goes ahead and puts them in the red zone. And so in the red zone, they're looking to put this thing away. It does come down to a 4th and 10 situation after some short plays. And so 4th and 10, Thomas looking to really nail in or hammer the nail in the coffin here. They go ahead and sub back in Alexa Wilson. And on 4th and 10, Wilson fires a great pass here. Rifles this one to Giselle Jones. It looks like she has it, but unfortunately she drops this one. And so not only is that not a touchdown pass, but it's also a turnover on downs. And so St. Thomas gets a chance here with about 3 minutes, 30 seconds left. Not a lot of time, but still a chance. And so here's what happens. Near on 3rd down, throws the out route to Kaylee Miller. She gets a first down there. couple plays later, a couple of drops later, I should say, is the accurate part. It is 4th down. Holly Neer throws the slant to Washington, who is a little short of the first down marker, tries to make a couple moves, tries to make something happen, but is eventually taken down by Delva and Scott, and she is taken down short here, and so that's a real tough situation. Thomas to get the ball back. They keep a call in. They're trying to run out the clock. They do go 3 and out, and so they are forced to punt it, but there's only 41.4 seconds left here. Now, St. Thomas basically scored with 14 seconds in the last game, so it's not impossible here, but they need a big play, and that's what Holly Neer decides to do here. She tries to take a shot deep here, and Kiara Knight intercepts it and ends the game here. Thomas remains your Sun Conference champs, winning over St. Thomas 26-19 here. Just a really close game. I mean, St. Thomas, they had their chances, but at the end of the day, it just came down to a lot of mistakes. I would say mostly offensively for St. Thomas here. Didn't quite play their cleanest game. But let me go over the stat line real quick. Let's start with Thomas. Alexa Wilson, in my opinion, had a great game. A redemption game, since she had a pretty tough game in their loss versus St. Thomas. And so coming back home, playing well, she won 22 of 30, 154 yards, 4 touchdowns, only 1 interception. That's awesome. I mean, she was basically credited with each of their scores this game, which ended up being the difference maker. Also, by the way, 19 rushing yards. Kiana Cole, 57 rushing yards as well. Now at receiver here, the lead receiver was Margarita Pena, 6 receptions, 51 yards, leading in receiving yards, that is, and a receiving touchdown. As far as receptions go, Kiana Cole will lead in receptions with 7 receptions for 19 yards and a touchdown. Britt Delva and Kiara Knight each had a touchdown as well. Now on defense was the squad, I would say, was the unit that really won this thing for Thomas and shut this thing down here. Janae Scott, 5 tackles, did her thing there. Britt Delva led in tackles in this game with 7 tackles, a sack, and a pick. But I want to say it was Kiara Knight who had a tackle and 2 interceptions in this game that was key. And that is your player of the game. I mean, 2 interceptions, a tough touchdown catch that would really help them gain some momentum here. I mean, she did it all for Thomas, and I think she's very well deserving of that player of the game title. Now for St. Thomas here, they had their chances. They only lost by a touchdown, but I mean, just a lot of turnovers. Holly Neer, 22 of 33, threw 3 touchdowns, but also threw 3 interceptions here. As far as offense goes, Deshaunba Washington, lead receiver with 5 receptions, 92 yards and a touchdown. Kaylee Miller right behind her with 5 receptions, 42 yards and a touchdown. Then you also have Dominique Parks with 7 receptions and 40 yards. A really quiet game for Jada Graham. Only 2 receptions for 20 yards. Only targeted 3 times. I mean, a huge Jada Graham touchdown obviously would have won them the game. But, I mean, they were playing great defense on her, so can't completely blame her there. Defensively, though, Mayerly Keon led with 11 tackles. Deshaunba Washington had a tackle and a pick. And then the lead or second tackler here was Miranda Fairdes with 9 tackles. So there you go there. Thomas, once more, is your Sun Conference champions. Back to back here, defeating St. Thomas 26-19 in an instant classic. Now let's go ahead and get to the KCAC tournament here. A conference tournament that is hosted in Kansas. By the way, great facilities and a really great stream. I just want to say that as well. Very clear, I should say, really. Now, first game was Cottey versus the University of St. Mary here. The winner would go ahead and face Ottawa, who had a bye. And so to start this game, the University of St. Mary started on offense, and they would have a pretty solid first down here. They would go ahead and get past the midfield on a Jerica Johnson swing route throw. And then following that, they would hand it off to her again for another first down. That will get them past midfield. but unfortunately they would stall out. Dropped handoff would really hurt them here, and so fourth down, that's what it would come down to. Sable Barnes under pressure by Kerryon Cloyd. She is forced to throw it away, and so unfortunately that is a turnover on downs. Now 7 minutes 30 seconds left in the first quarter. Cottey take over for the first time. Jennifer Haberstock in at quarterback. Third down here. Haberstock makes the first player miss before pitching it forward to Emma Bruce, but unfortunately still brings up a 4th and 10-ish situation, it looks like. But on 4th down and 10, Haberstock checks down to Kenzie Murdoch, who slips a defender and gets them past midfield. And so that would be pretty clutch there. So there you go. Now, following that, Haberstock checks back down to Kenzie Murdoch, who slashes just right up the middle this defense here and gets another huge first down for about 20 yards. That also puts them in the red zone. So key plays by Kenzie Murdoch to keep this drive alive here. Now there's a drop to start here in the red zone, but there is a slant to Shamis Lee here. Eventually it brings up third down, but on third down, Haberstock sacked by Demi Hilton. And so that brings up kind of a tougher 4th down situation. 4th down here in the red zone. Here's what happens though. Haberstock lofts one up on the fade route here to Shamis Lee, and she makes a sensational one-handed catch. Shades of Odell Beckham Jr. here. But regardless, it goes for a touchdown, giving Cottey the 6-0 lead. On the extra point, Haberstock finds Angelina Cruz on the drag route to make it 7-0 there. Cottey taking the early lead. Now, let's go ahead and fast forward here a little bit. The St. Mary's, they would try to get something going, but unfortunately here, Barnes, well, she goes deep, and Shamis Lee just picks this one off and gives Cottey the ball back with a chance to go up by 2 scores. Unfortunately, they are not able to get another score, and so they do turn it over on downs here. And so the Spires would get the ball back with 2:19 left, and here's what happens. They do a direct snap to Jerica Johnson on the end around, by the way. And then she pitches it to NAIA Hooks, and then she throws it deep to Shannon Cooley, who brings it in for a huge 20-ish yard play here. Very creative play calling here. And then following that, Sable Barnes rolls right and finds Jerica Johnson in the flats, who puts them in the red zone. And then that's the end of the first quarter. Now in the second quarter, they're in the red zone, but they do struggle just a little bit here. A false start on them would push them back quite a bit, and so eventually it comes down to 4th down, and on this down, Barnes tries to scramble, but she is stopped short by Kenzie Murdoch here, not able to score. And so Cottey gets the ball back with 9:55 left, but unfortunately once more is not able to get too much here, and so they go 3 and out here. Just a lot of short plays that really didn't help them out. And so the Spires, they would get the punt, and they would get a pretty solid return on this punt, and would tag on a penalty that was thrown on Cottey. And so the Spires would actually start here in the red zone here, but once again they just continue to struggle. It does come down to a 4th down sitch once more, and Barnes tries to throw it into the end zone, but it is just not on the mark and it's incomplete. And so honestly, now that I'm looking at this, neither team would get too much going here, as there would be a lot of struggles. Sack by Demi Hilton here, a lot of pressure by Kerryon Cloyd. She would get a sack, I want to say, or 2 in this quarter. And so neither team would score here in the second quarter. And so going into the third quarter, Cottey has the 7-0 lead, definitely still in control of this game. But to start the third quarter here, they're looking to extend this lead just a little bit more, get some breathing room here, and it starts out pretty promising. They find Emma Bruce on the drag route, that gives them a first down. Following that, they run a play on first down. There's a legal contact that's called on the Spires, and so that does add on just a little bit as well to that. But anyways, first down again. Amaya Kurula, this time in at quarterback, she's forced to scramble. She goes right up the middle. That gets them past midfield. But unfortunately, once more, this offense begins to sputter just a little bit. And so it comes down to a 4th and 10 situation. And Kurula drops back, tries to throw it, but it is kind of swatted back into her face by Shannon Cooley. And so that is a turnover on downs. And 8:33 left. Time is running out, but still plenty of it for the University of St. Mary. And this drive does start out pretty promising with a first down here on the hitch route to Rebecca Ruck. But once more, it comes down to third down here. And on third down, Sable Barnes in that quarterback tries to go deep to Shannon Cooley, but this ball was knocked down. Just great defense here. And so they go ahead, and it looks like they're going to punt it, and they do, but it's a 4th down, by the way, when they try to punt it. But there's an illegal, I think they said an illegal substitution penalty on Cottey. And so that moves up the Spires. And so it's 4th down. And this time, instead of punting it, they're going for it, obviously. And Barnes, she is forced to check it down to Ellie Campbell, who goes ahead and slips some defenders here and makes it happen and gets them into the red zone. And so they go from punting it to getting into the red zone just like that. But 2 straight handoffs, they basically go for nothing. And so now it's 3rd down here, and on 3rd down, Barnes tries to loft one to Rebecca Ruck, but she is very well covered here. So that brings up 4th down. And unfortunately, on 4th down, Barnes tries to find Shannon Cooley on the post route, and she is open, but the throw is just too low, and so that is a turnover on downs. And so 2 minutes, 48 seconds left here for Cottey. Haberstock back in at quarterback. First play of the game. Here's what happens. She checks it down to Kenzie Murdoch. Murdoch makes a couple players miss here, finds the left sideline, goes down the field, burns the defense, goes 50 plus yards to the house to make it 13-0. Kind of an unexpected play, honestly. But she makes all these players miss, and so it's just a tough go for the Spires, just missing a lot of flags. But Murdoch just makes a play and scores and gives Cottey a big time 13-0 lead. Now, 2 minutes, 2 seconds left. Oh, by the way, extra point was no good. 2 minutes, 2 seconds left. Spires, they are not out of time, but they have to get something going here. They start with a nice out route to Shannon Cooley that goes for a first down. But after a drop, Barnes, she tries to go deep to NAIA Hooks here, who looks like she catches it momentarily, but then it gets ripped away by Daniela Goodridge, and so they call it an interception here for Goodridge, which I would agree on. I mean, it happened pretty quickly, but I definitely agree on. But they do throw an unsportsmanlike penalty on Cottey after the play, and so Cottey's moved back a little bit, and it looks like they have a little untimed down here right before the third quarter ends here. And so on that untimed down, Haberstock, she tries to go over the middle of the field here, throwing the football, but that's pretty easily intercepted by Cooley. And so to start the fourth quarter, the Spires would start with the football here. But unfortunately here, I mean, they would drive all the way downfield. A huge 20-yard pass from Barnes to Cooley would contribute to that, but it would come down to a fourth down situation in the red zone. Barnes tries to throw it, but Destiny Martinez gets a pretty clutch knockdown here that'll make it a turnover on downs. But Cottey, they're not able to do too much with it with 7:24 left. Would only get a first down to Shamies Lee on a nice comeback, but eventually a couple incompletions in a row would force a Cottey punt. And so time is running out for St. Mary here, the University of St. Mary here, but they got to get a quick score regardless if they want to stay in it. And so here's what happens. 4 minutes, 9 seconds left. Second down here. Barnes goes ahead, throws to the dig route here, puts it on the money to Ellie Campbell, who gets separation and reaches out the football here for the score to make it 13-6. And it stays that way because the extra point is deflected by Destiny Martinez. Now Cottey, they're looking to potentially get another score, but mostly just trying to run out the clock here. After getting a first down to Shea Measley, it does come down to a fourth down play, and they go ahead and sub in Amaya Karula, or she's been in, and so she's in here, fourth down. She is under pressure, tries to throw it, it's too low. And so that ends up being a turnover on downs, and the Spires with a chance to potentially tie this thing up and maybe even take the lead, but they got to score a touchdown first. It comes down to a fourth down situation a couple plays later. And what happens, Sable Barnes, under pressure, kind of just throws it up to Shannon Cooley, and she makes another clutch reception, rising and making this catch here for a huge first down that would put them in the red zone here. And so, a minute 30 seconds left, there's an incompletion and an overthrow here. The incompletion was an overthrow, so that would bring up second down. And on second down, they would do a direct snap to Jerica Johnson, and then she would try to throw it to Shannon Cooley. And it looks like a solid play, but it is too low of a pass, so that brings up third down. But on third down, this pass is off the mark, too high, but there is a penalty on Cottey for roughing the passer. So it's a repeat of third down here, moved up in the red zone. And so here we go, third down, Barnes on the run, finds Rebecca Rock, who stretches it out to as well to make it 13-12 here. And so here we go. The Spires looking to tie this thing up. They go ahead and throw it. Looks like a little jump pass here, but this one is intercepted. And so Cottey holds on, and they go ahead and run out the clock. And just like that, Cottey moves on to the semifinals for the first time ever to go ahead and play Ottawa as they defeat the University of St. Mary 13-12 in a close one. Now, the player of the game to me has to be Kenzie Murdoch. Had that huge touchdown in the third. Also had some big stops on defense as well. And in a 1 point, game, you pretty much use all the help you could get both on offense and defense. So there you go there, Cottey for the first time ever moving on to the semis. Now moving on to the other game here, we have number 3 Midland versus number 6 Bethel. Winner of this game goes ahead and plays Kansas Wesleyan here in the semis. And so here is what happens. I mean, this game isn't super close, to be honest with you. To start, there's an interception from Desenia Barcinas from number 15, who started at quarterback for Bethel. I couldn't find her on the roster. And so that would basically set up this Midland drive. And right away, it looks like Midland is basically playing their backups here. Angel Ioane-Keo is in at quarterback, and then Casey Thompson didn't play in this game. And so just keep that in mind. But Ioane-Keo, she gets a start. She finds Emily Farron on fourth down in the red zone on a quick hitch, in the end zone on a quick hitch route to give them the 6-0 lead at around 9:37 left. Then Ioane would go ahead and scramble in for the extra point to make it 7-0. Following that, Bethel on offense here, they go ahead and throw it, and it's a pick six here, I believe by the same quarterback, but it's Aliyah Livingston of Midland who would get that pick six, making it 13-0. On the extra point, Ioane-Keo, the quarterback, pitches it to Diva Jones, who walks it in, making it 14-0 with a 9:07 left. Now, Kyla Rome is put back in at quarterback. She got most of the starts this last season here, but she doesn't do too much better, as she does eventually also throws an interception, this time to Naomi Upenya Tuau, I want to say. And unfortunately on that one, I guess Midland's not able to score off that turnover, but they still got it. But in the final seconds of the first half, Ioane-Keo, she does go deep to Diva Jones, who makes some defenders miss, and she makes it a 20-0 lead as Midland begins to run away with it. Now, honestly, at this point, the game's basically over. I mean, Midland, they are the better team than Bethel, so, I mean, there's no big surprises. In the third quarter, Ioane-Keo pitches it to Diva Jones, who gets another touchdown that makes it 26-0. Later on in the third, Ioane-Keo finds Diva Jones on the out, who basically does the rest and takes it to the house to make it 32-0. And then on the extra point, they KO would find Jones again to make it 33-0. Now in the fourth quarter, Bethel would get a little bit of something going at about the, I want to say 11:55 second mark. Kyler Rome walks it in for a Bethel touchdown, making it 33-6. She would also run it in again to make it 33-7. Couple minutes later, 8:26 left, Kyler Rome walks in for another touchdown to make it 33-13. But like I said, this game is basically over. KO would get the last touchdown here, pitching it forward to Olivia Dominguez-Millsap to make it 39-13. And so Midland wins 39-13 and will face off with Kansas Wesleyan in the semifinals. Oh, but player of the game absolutely has to be their quarterback, KO. Definitely good to get her some snaps here, and do her thing. And she played a great game, honestly, and that's why they were able to go to the semis. So there you go there. Now, for the first semifinal game, I'm going to recap it. And then for the next one, Cottey will recap it since he watched most of that game. And so the semifinal game I got to watch was Ottawa versus Cottey here. Now, I do want to say Cottey's head coach was not able to coach in this game. So they were without their head coach here. So just keep that in mind. But Ottawa, they are the favorites to get started. They are the reigning KCAC and national champions. So definitely an uphill battle here. But to get started, Madison Carrera at quarterback checks down to Mando Scalisi. She gets the first down. Following that, a couple plays later, second down here, Madison Carrera finds Tatiana Dos Santos on the post route, who gets loose and almost scores here. Looks like she might score, but she is stopped just a little bit short here in the red zone, though, on a nice 25-yard reception. Following that, Carrera throws towards the left corner here to Bailey Hodgins to take the 6-0 lead. Carrera then runs in the extra point to take that 7-0 lead. Now, Cottey, things would start promising. Check down to Murdoch will get them some solid yardage, and then they would throw the hitch to Shamies Lee for a first down. But unfortunately, just a lot of short plays here. By the way, Jennifer Haberstock at quarterback to start this game. But just a lot of short plays for them just will not get it done. And so by the time it comes to fourth down, it's 4th and long, and Cottey punts it. Now, Ottawa, they will get the ball back here. Second down here, Carrera throws the corner to Bailey Hodgins here, who gets a big gain of around 20 or so yards past midfield. Following that, Carrera buys some time here, flushed out right eventually, before launching one deep to Alyssa Linkus for another 20-yard chunk play. And then on first down here in the red zone, by the way, Carrera pitches it to Scalisi on the option route, and she makes it 13-0. On the extra point, Carrera, she finds Alyssa Linkus on the drag. She makes it 14-0. Now, Cottey, they would go 3 and out. Haberstock sacked by DJ Paris. That would really contribute to that. And so 3 and out here. Ottawa would get the ball with about 3:44 left. Second down here, Carrera on the run finds Tatiana Dos Santos for another nice gain of about 15 or so. That does put them in the red zone. Fast forward a couple plays, third down here, Carrera finds Alyssa Linkus. She goes ahead and makes it 20-0. Then on the extra point, Carrera goes back to Linkus to make it 21-0. At this point, the game is basically over. Cottey would go 3 and out again. It's still the first quarter, and Ottawa's already up 21-0. And so from here on out, I'm just gonna recap the just what happened here. Just some of the scores. So at 11:45. After the punt in a false start, Carrera goes deep down the left sideline and finds Tatiana Dos Santos in stride. Beautiful ball here, by the way, for a 20-plus yard touchdown to make it 28-0. An extra point by Addie Osborne would make it 28-0. Then following that, Lauren Clark would eventually get a pick six off tip. She would deflect the ball back to herself and then run it back. That would make it 34-0. Then they would pitch it to Maya Quinn. That would make it 35-0. But yeah, you know what? You get the point. Ottawa wins 61-6 here. Ottawa goes back to the KCAC Conference Championship. playing the winner of Midland versus Kansas Wesleyan. Let me just go over some stats here. Player of the game was Madison Carrera, 19 of 21, only 2 incompletions, but 266 passing yards, 5 passing touchdowns, also added 16 rushing yards. She's your player of the game. Maya Quinn eventually got in, went 8 of 11 for 104 yards and a touchdown. As far as receiving goes, Tatiana Dos Santos was your leader with 4 receptions, 95 yards, and a touchdown. Leading in receiving yards, that is. Your leader in receptions was Mandolin Scalisi with 6 receptions, 65 yards, and a touchdown. Now looking at defense here, you had Abby Brown and Jacani Washington each with 6 tackles. Abby Brown had 7, and then Jacani Washington and DJ Paris each had 6 tackles. Paris with 2 sacks. 3 tackles for loss here. Suzanne Kaufman would also have a sack. And then it looks like Lauren Clark had her pick, that pick 6. And then Farron Maliff would have a pick as well. Now looking at Cottey stats here, honestly not the worst day from Jennifer Haberstock. 28 of 41, 202 yards, a touchdown, only 2 picks really. I think you could live with that for the most part. But if you're going to beat a team like Ottawa, you got to definitely score more. So not the worst game like I said. Now, at receiver, Amaya Karula was your lead receiver with 7 receptions, 123 receiving yards, and a receiving touchdown. And then on defense, Kenzie Murdoch led in tackles with 8. So there you go there. Ottawa moving on to the conference championship.
Howdy, folks, and welcome to my recap on the KCAC semifinal of Kansas Wesleyan versus Midland here. Midland beat Bethel to advance into this round here, and Kansas Wesleyan was waiting for them, and boy did they come out of the gate ready to perform here. As to start this game on the very first play, Michaela Nunez is picked off by Angel Roman, who takes it to the house to start off this game and puts Kansas Wesleyan up 6-0 to start here. There might be some questions on if Nunez had a little bit of rust from not getting to really play in that Bethel game, according to the announcers. But I digress here. Let's go ahead and talk about the next Midland drive here. This game just got started really fast. Midland in a hole already, down 6-0 with basically no time passing on the clock. The entire quarter is still left here once Midland gets the ball for now their second drive here. They run for almost a first down before getting to the line of scrimmage, but a huge penalty on Kansas Wesleyan gives Midland the first down here. There's then a shovel pass and then a lateral that gets almost to midfield here. And then on third down, Nunez steps up and finds Alyssa Butler for a first down. They then gain a yard, but then there's an incompletion or a drop. And then on 3rd and 2, there's great pressure from 2 rushers on the Kansas Wesleyan side of the ball, specifically Jada Wilson, who is just in Nunez's face. And they force a 4th and 2. And on 4th and 2, Kansas Wesleyan, they dial up another blitz here, and they walk away with a sack. I think it was Murape here who gets the sack and forces a turnover on downs and gives Kansas Wesleyan the ball just behind midfield, I should say. Now, on this next Coyote drive here, they do get a pass for a first down before there's an incompletion, and then they have a crosser here that picks up another first down. But then they have a couple of plays that just kind of stall out here, and it's about 4th and 8 when Casey Thompson forces pressure and, gets in Brianna Hernandez Silvas' face, but she still gets the pass off, but what would be a drop ultimately kills this drive here, and Midland would get the ball back. Now to start this drive, Michaela Nunez rolls outright, but just overthrows near the sideline here. And on the next play, there is a series of laterals, I should say, typical to the Midland offense that sets up about 3rd and 6 for this drive here. And, there's a catch following that sets up 4th and 2. But Nunez feels the pressure on these 2 rushers that Kansas Wesleyan dials up again on 4th and 2 and finds Alyssa Butler over the middle. And after a missed flagpole, Alyssa's actually able to kind of spin out of that and gains like 14 yards, including the first down. Nunez, then on the very next play, there's some momentum here for the Midland squad, but targeting Thompson just pops it up in the air, and there's another Angel Roman interception here to get KWU the ball and kind of just kill this, well, definitively kill this Midland drive, but definitely one that Midland would want back, especially when you look back later on this game. But, Kansas Wesleyan with the ball again. They find a gain, but on second down, the pressure is too much, and the snapper is just stopped at the line of scrimmage after Hernandez Silva dumps it off. On 3rd and 4, Silva throws off her back foot and is intercepted by number 17 here on Midland, which is Alexis Dominguez Millsop here, and she returns this interception for 31 yards and, gets it into Kansas Wesleyan territory. Now, Midland now has the ball, 1st and goal here. They start off with a speed option left to Diva Jones, who gets into the end zone and ties it up at 6. And then on the conversion, Nunez finds Dominguez Millsop here, who makes it a whopping 7-6 with 45 seconds left in this first quarter, giving Midland their first lead of this game just prior to the end here. And this is mainly sparked by Alexis Dominguez Millsop's great performance on these past 2 drives, both on the defensive side of the ball with the massive return, and then obviously finishing the offensive drive with a conversion here. But Kansas Wesleyan, they get the ball, and I'm not really sure what the plan is here. But Silva throws into traffic. I think that she was trying to lead her receiver, but just isn't quite in the right place here. And Aaliyah Livingston lunges in and wins the jump ball and gives Midland the ball right back here on the 35 going in. So Midland here with a chance to increase their lead on back-to-back drives with interceptions. So to start, there is Nunez runs right and is forced out of bounds / gets her flag pulled. And then there's an injury on the Kansas Wesleyan sideline here. I believe Lexi Marquez ended up being okay, but this was a long delay here in the game. And then they still get off one more play in the first quarter here. That's just a dump off right to Casey Thompson for a first down. And that concluded the first quarter with Midland ahead of Kansas Wesleyan 7-6. Thompson then has another catch for 3, but the rest of this drive would not go Midland's way as the KWU defense steps up, forces a few incompletions, and gets a turnover on downs. And KWU would start with the ball on their own 12-yard line. They have a bad pitch before a dump off to Velasquez gets them moving forward a little bit. But on 3rd and 5, Casey Thompson has a huge flagpole at the line of scrimmage. And on this play, it looks like there is just a bit of confusion for the Coyote offense with one player not really running a route and, just them scrambling to get set up and looking at their wristbands over and over again. It seemed like there was probably some miscommunication for the offense here. And so with 9 minutes left in the half, they are forced to punt. Now, Midland, they do a great job of flipping the field here, Kansas Wesleyan that is, and Midland has to start on their own 30-yard line, and Diva Jones gets to the 35 on a run before Jada Wilson on the next play gets a huge flagpole for loss of about 4, forcing 3rd and 9. Nunez then finds number 3, Alyssa Butler, by the boundary, and on 4th and 1, the Midland hard count gets KWU to jump and a first down for Midland at around midfield. Now, on first down here, pressure forces an incompletion before Jones runs for 5 but gets a lateral off to Livingston here, setting up a 3rd and 1. There's going to be a short kind of shovel pass to Thompson for a first down. But, on the next play, Butler tries to secure the catch, but starts to look upfield before securing it and drops the ball here. And it's at this time that the rain is picking up pretty heavy here in Kansas, and it is coming down. I can see it pretty clearly from the stream even. And, the announcers were talking about trying to stay dry in their cove up there. So, the rain is going to start playing a factor in the passing game in this game. And it plays a factor on, obviously, this play, but on the next one where Nunez drops the snap. And now Midland, after losing probably 9 yards on this play, is facing 3rd and goal from the 25-yard line. They get a pass for 11 here, or a pass to number 11 that gets them to the 19-yard line. But on 4th and goal, there's an incomplete pass, and it is a turnover on downs with 2 minutes and 20 seconds left in the half. Now, Kansas Wesleyan on their own 19, they, speed off to the right for a first down, pretty easy. And then Hernandez Silva runs left for 4, but an illegal contact on Midland puts the ball 2 yards from midfield here. So a huge Midland mistake here, setting up this Coyote drive to potentially come away with some points. And Hernandez Silva throws a pass to Angel Roman in double coverage and is lucky that it falls incomplete. But on 2nd and 2, they dial it down a little bit. They do a hitch right for a first down, but there's a penalty for roughing the passer that gets them really close to the next first down. So 2 huge Midland mistakes here, pushing Kansas Wesleyan not only to midfield, but beyond that and into scoring territory here. So after these penalties, they get a speed pitch right for a first down and gets about to the 15 before a run to the left is stopped short, and Kansas Wesleyan takes a timeout here. Hernandez Silva then on the next play believes that she scores breaking left, but gets all the way down to the 1-yard line. And so 3rd and 1 with 54 seconds left, Silva takes a direct snap up the gut for 6. Now, on the conversion, they have a penalty that pushes them back, and the conversion would be no good. But regardless, Kansas Wesleyan would be up 12-7 with 47 seconds in the half. And on the very next Midland drive, Shania Marape here gets a sack that concludes the first half here. So the big takeaways in this first half for me were that the Midland defense came to play. I think that they really did set up the Midland offense to capitalize on some Kansas Wesleyan mistakes, but penalties are just killing this Midland team here that probably should have 2 to 3 touchdowns by this point in the game, but they're just not quite finishing drives here. And this Kansas Wesleyan defense is, bending, but not necessarily breaking for how often they were on the field and the positions that they were put in. They were stepping up pretty big time here. And then the Kansas Wesleyan offense, obviously they did find a way to score a touchdown in this half, but you have to remember, if it wasn't for that initial pick 6, they would be behind in this game. So Kansas Wesleyan, they get to start here in the second half, and they want to come out and establish a little bit of efficiency here on their drives. And so they get a short run for 3, and then on the next play, Brianna Hernandez Silva keeps this crazy play alive with a great flag elude and finds Roman for a first here before, a few throwaways and a false start lead to a Kansas Wesleyan punt, and Midland gets all the way to the 39 on the punt return. And on 1st and 1, there is a drop before on 2nd and 1, Casey Thompson catches for a short first down. There's a bad snap after that leads to like a loss of 8, and the announcers are calling it 2nd and 24. There's just a pass here where Nunez overthrows Butler, and on the next play, Diva Jones gets a run for 13, and on 4th and 11, Midland takes a timeout here with about 5 minutes and 30 seconds left in this third quarter, and there is an incomplete pass. The rain just looked really brutal on both the pass attempt and the pass catch attempt, and there's a turnover on downs. So Kansas Wesleyan will get the ball on their own 31-yard line with Brianna Hernandez Silva going left for a solid gain. And then on 2nd and 4, there is just a weird screen pass here where I mean, Hernandez Silva's rolling out left. She passes it. Roman's looking upfield before catching it. The ball is placed a little bit behind, it seems like, but they call it incomplete. And then on 3rd and 4, they have a really short pitch here that gets a first down, but a penalty would bring it back, making it 4th and 5, where Kansas Wesleyan around midfield surprisingly decides to punt the ball here, but they get a pretty good flipping of the field here as Midland has to start on their own 21. And keep in mind, with the first down marker being at the 20-yard line here, that means that Midland has to make it to midfield. So that Kansas Wesleyan sideline was going brazy over a nice pin by this special teams unit. Now, with 3 minutes and 28 seconds in the third quarter here, Angel Roman gets a great flagpole at the line of scrimmage and then breaks up a pass that is almost an interception here. Very similar to the pick six that she had earlier in the game, but, a pass breakup is still huge here. And so on 3rd and 17, there's a little bit of a bobble and an incompletion, and so Midland would decide to punt. Now, Kansas Wesleyan on their own 30, with like a minute basically in this third quarter. They have a pitch left, and then there's a throw downfield to Angel Roman, like basically just like okay, she's somewhere over there, and Hernandez Silva just chucks it out there, and it's incomplete. Now, entering into the fourth quarter, there is a first down with a quick play here, and to start the fourth quarter, Silva runs right and sets up 2nd and 16. There's a gut run that somehow sets up 3rd and 4, and then Silva somehow avoids 2 defenders and gets 1st and goal at the 1-yard line. But on the very next play, Hernandez Silva is sacked. But on the following play, does find Angel Roman for the score and converts. But the conversion is no good, making it 18-7 with 8:55 left in this game. This is a huge drive by Kansas Wesleyan that eats up a ton of time. They're running the ball really well with Hernandez Silva here and just being very efficient. And Midland, now down by 2 scores, has got to generate a score on this next drive. Otherwise, the chances are not looking good. And so, they do get a first down here. But then on 2nd and 14, there is a bobbled pass that is then intercepted by Kansas Wesleyan here. And yeah, this looks very bad right now. And, Kansas Wesleyan, they have the ball going in, right? But Alyssa Butler from Midland University steps up huge with an interception to get the ball right back to Midland with 6 minutes left here, and breathes life into this team. And, after a couple plays, they get a first down with some runs. Then they have a run by Diva Jones for a big gain, but she laterals forward, and it comes back here. They then run a pitch right, and then on 3rd and 10, they go right, but there is a penalty when she is tackled here. The ball carrier is tackled by, this Kansas Wesleyan defense here, and this is massive for the Midland squad that gets another chance here, and this leads to a first down. They get a run right, and then on 2nd and 13 there is a lost snap here, which sets up 3rd and 17, where Shariah here gets a massive sack on Midland here, and Shania Marape, my bad, sets up 4th and 21 for Midland here, and a Jada Wilson interception with 2.5 minutes left all but concludes this game here. Kansas Wesleyan, they eventually do punt, but Midland has to start their drive on their own 10 with 57 seconds left, and they just run out of time here. And Kansas Wesleyan advances to the KCAC championship here against Ottawa at Arrowhead, that we will be able to fill you in on. But yeah, thanks for listening to this Kansas Wesleyan versus Midland segment here. Obviously, both these teams substantially better than they were a year ago, and it shows on the defensive side of the ball, I'd say more than anything here. But Both these teams arguably not capitalizing off of opportunities as much as they should have, and they will need to shore that up. Kansas Wesleyan, obviously, for any hope in the KCAC championship, and both these teams for the national tournament in mid-May that I will be at. So be sure to try and find me there. And until then, be sure to stick around for the rest of the recaps and looking forward to the national tournament. Hey y'all, surprise, surprise, it is still me, Cody Stauffer here to recap the KCAC championship here that was played at Arrowhead Stadium, home to some team in the NFL. Oh man, I don't like the Chiefs. But anyways, they did have this showdown between the Kansas Wesleyan Coyotes and the Ottawa Braves here. Ottawa looking to secure their third straight KCAC flag football championship here, and Kansas Wesleyan looking to knock on that door here. Now, these two teams faced in the chip last year, and Ottawa came out on top 34-7. So let's go ahead and talk about what happened in this game that was on April 29th. So by the time I'm recording this, that'd be yesterday. And, both through my notes as well as Simon's notes here, Coach V, we're going to put this game together here. So to start this game off, Ottawa is going to start with the ball. And what is something that you've probably heard a million times here, Carrera finds Linkus here on a slant for a gain of a few. But then on 2nd and inches, Carrera is flushed out to the left and lofts one to Bailey Hodgins with great touch on this pass, mind you, on this post route. And it goes 20 plus yards to put them in the red zone on only their second play from scrimmage here. Now, with Ottawa in the red zone here, the Kansas Wesleyan defense tries to buckle down here, forcing some short passes, forcing a short gain, and then an incompletion, pressuring Carrera here. And so 4th and 2 comes up for the Braves, and Carrera is flushed outright thanks to some great shadow blocking here on Ottawa's part here, and Carrera has a ton of time to read the field before deciding to book it and squeezes in on the right side to make it 6-0. And on the 1-point conversion, would find Camacho on a slant to make it 7-0. Now, with 8:51 here in this first quarter here, Kansas Wesleyan would get the ball for the first time here, and they try to do a little jet sweep action here and get a first down, but the rest of this drive just kind of stalls out with great pressure from Ottawa here via DJ Paris, and eventually they will have to punt on this drive, giving Ottawa the ball back with 6 minutes and 13 seconds left. So, after a drop to start this drive on 2nd down, here on 3rd down, Carrera scrambles for another gain to get past midfield here. So you're doing the math here, and already Ottawa's up 3 first downs to 1 here against KWU. Something to keep in mind for my notes at the end of the game. But, as they continue down this drive, they get through with a few check downs here to Scalisi as well as Quinn to get them into the red zone, and another Scalisi check down before Carrera goes to Camacho here to take a 13-0 lead. And then after an Alyssa Linkus catch on the conversion, it is 14-0 Ottawa. Now with 2 minutes and 18 seconds left in the first quarter, KWU with the ball, Brianna Hernandez Silva on the scramble goes right and gets a solid gain to get a first down here before they run another sweep to DeQuay here. And on that play, she does end up losing a yard. Now, after an incompletion, they try to go deep and take a shot down the seam here, but that ball does not get to its target, and KWU has to punt once again here, not yet crossing midfield. Now, for Ottawa here, they start this next drive off a bit shaky here in the second quarter, their first drive of the second quarter, that is, and they have a dropped pitch that loses them like 10 yards. Before on 2nd down, there's an overthrow that is kind of tipped up, and KW also gets a hand on it but can't quite force the turnover. So on third down, Carrera rolls out right and she finds Scalisi, who makes a couple people miss and collects the first down getting past midfield. There's then a hitch to Dos Santos for 5, and on second down, Carrera scrambles up the middle for 10. Now, they get a first down here, and Carrera goes deep to Camacho, but it is overthrown. On second down, Carrera settles down for Linkus, who gets them within 10 here. And on third down, Carrera is flushed out left and throws it to the back corner, but two Ottawa receivers run into each other and the ball falls incomplete. Now here on fourth down, little bit of an interesting one here. Carrera does kind of move to her left and she rifles in a pass near the sideline, and Maya Quinn makes a catch against great coverage to make it 20-0. But when I look at this play and I slow it down and I pause it and I take a screenshot, this is me, Cottey, chipping in here. You know, most of these notes are done courtesy of Coach V, but this one, I slowed it down, I took a picture, and Quinn's foot that she gets in bounds, quote, there's it's a white cleat and it's definitely touching the white line. So I don't think this is a catch. However, with the speed and how close the defender was and everything like that of this play, it's a very tough call. I'm not going to knock the refs for that call, but I would have called that back. And, you know, a turnover on downs probably makes a huge difference here. But regardless, that is not how it went. And KWU gets the score and the conversion to go up 21-0 with 7 minutes left in this first half. Now, KWU down by 3 scores. They're feeling the heat. They're feeling the pressure. And they do respond here following a drop on first down. That is, Brianna Hernandez Silva finds Angel Roman on an out. She kind of turns upfield for a gain of 10 and a first down. Then on the next play, Brianna Hernandez Silva does it herself for another 10 yards. And on second down, Brianna Hernandez Silva is getting rushed pretty heavily by these Braves, but finds Angel Alvarez for 20 yards in the seam here. And this is the first time that KWU moves past midfield here. So this is monumental, and they are not going to waste this opportunity, as eventually they get inside the red zone, and Brianna Hernandez Silva on 2nd and 1 rolls right and throws it underhand to Velasquez Moo here, and she will score the touchdown, making it 21-6. And after a scramble left and reaching the ball out, Brianna Hernandez Silva brings this game back within 21-7. But 2 minutes and 43 seconds is not how much time you ever want to leave the Braves here. And after a great sack here on, Madison Carrera here, courtesy of Kansas Wesleyan player Rabano, I want to say, is how you pronounce that. After this sack here, the Braves just wind up here, and Carrera throws a perfect pass to Jaslyn Camacho here, who tears it upfield and capitalizes on this great opportunity here and scores a touchdown to make it 28-7. Well, Camacho catches the conversion too, because beast mode. And so with 2 minutes to go in this half, it is 28-7 Ottawa. So just after getting some momentum and scoring a touchdown, the Ottawa Braves respond with kind of a punch in the gut here. But KWU, they eventually have to punt it, and with 1 minute and 8 seconds, Ottawa, they smell blood in the water here, and they want to try and really just make this a hard hole to climb out of here. And so they're coming out swinging. They get a couple of check downs here, and then a double pass from Quinn to Hodgins, who pitches it to Camacho for a solid gain of like 30 yards. They get past midfield here, and, KWU, they start to buckle down here, and this Coyote defense makes some massive plays down the stretch of this first half here to not make the hole bigger, as Marape gets a sack, and then with only 2 seconds left, Carrera will go deep, but gets intercepted by Angel Roman. So the Coyote defense holds strong, and they keep the Braves out of the end zone and enter the half down 28-7. Not ideal, but doable, as KWU will receive the quote-unquote kickoff here. And so to start on offense, they have an incomplete pass here, and then they eventually actually get to third down after 2 incomplete passes, but a designed run to Brianna Hernandez Silva gets a first down. Then following that, there's a hitch to Angel Roman, who makes a move and gets 3. And following an incompletion on third down, Brianna Hernandez-Silva rolls right, and wide open is Jada Wilson on the right sideline, who wins the foot race here and makes it 28-13 before a Coyote conversion here with Ashley Hawthorne makes it 28-14. So this is a 2-score game. Your defense just made a huge stop at the end of the first half, and your offense comes out. And the big splash plays are what's keeping Kansas Wesleyan in this game. They haven't really shown us the ability to drive quite yet, and Ottawa, I assume, is going to make some adjustments on defense. But Ottawa with the ball on offense here. They have a short pass before on second down, Carrera would find Maya Quinn for 20-plus yards, and that would be a first down. Then Carrera would find Linkus over the middle for another first down before they end up, kind of chipping away here. They have a short pass to Quinn for 5, and then on second down and 8, they throw another pass to Quinn for about 7 or so. Now at this point, they're in the red zone, and they get 2 quick incompletions here, and then on third down, they throw a short out to Camacho to try and make that distance a little bit more manageable. But on fourth down, once again, this Coyote defense, they came to play today, and on this fourth down play, they get a huge sack here from Rabano, and that'll make it a turnover on downs. Now, Kansas Wesleyan, with great stops on the last 2 drives and having scored on their last offensive drive here, they got to, they have a great chance to make this a 1-score game here. So 3 minutes and 29 seconds left in this third quarter here. Brianna Hernandez-Silva would find DeQuay for a first down on an out play. And then after a scramble and a shovel pass here, it would set up 3rd and 1, and a hard count would get the Ottawa Braves to jump offsides for an automatic first down at midfield. But right here is where things start to kind of get clogged up a little bit, as they have an incompletion, and then a delay of game penalty puts them back on the other side of midfield. And a short pass and a short run are not enough to make it 4th and manageable here, and so they end up turning over on downs. Now with 10 minutes and 15 seconds left, up by 2 scores, Ottawa, they come out with a couple of checkdowns to Scalisi that gets past midfield, but following an incompletion to start on the other side of midfield, they go right back to what's working and find Scalisi for a gain of 4. On third down, this Braves offense and all their weapons finds a nice first down to Camacho here on an out route as she pushes forward and gets into the red zone. Now, they do lose quite a few yards on this very first play, and, they end up in a little bit of a hole here, and Carrera, to try and dig themselves out, finds Quinn, but a great flagpole makes it for only a gain of 3 yards. Now on second down, there's a scramble for about 7, and then on third down, Carrera, she will go over the middle, and the ball is going to be popped up, and it's going to be intercepted by the Kansas Wesleyan defense. This time, it is going to be Howard here who makes the interception, and this is going to be a touchback. So, once again, your defense has forced another huge turnover here, and the Coyote offense has to back it up here. And so with 5.5 minutes left in this game, they get a screenplay here for about a 15-yard gain and a first down. Then they have a shovel pass here for a couple of yards, but then they just start running these really short plays. On second down, there's a quick out for about 6, and on third down, there's a deep pass to Roman, but it is incomplete. And on fourth down, with basically the season on the line here, the Braves, they show their poise here. The defense steps up massive, and Susan Kaufman actually gets a sack that would wrap this game up more or less, forcing a turnover on downs. Now with 3 minutes and 7 seconds left here, there's going to be a direct snap to Addie Osborne, who gets a first down to go into the red zone. And on a triple option, there's going to be a pitch here to Randria Gamble here. Let's just stick with Gamble, who is going to turn up and go ahead and get that score here. And then a direct snap, for a gain of 6. And then on second down and 3, Osborne's going to take the direct snap, actually make it 32-14. They would get a conversion, and that would reflect the final score of this game, 34-14. Ottawa is your 3-time KCAC flag football champs. Kansas Wesleyan scoring one more touchdown than last year, but just can't quite overcome that 28-point first half that Ottawa has here. And so my big notes from this game, my big takeaways is I just got to talk. Kansas Wesleyan does not get past midfield all that many times this game, versus when Ottawa gets it, they are going to be a threat to score on every single drive. They have a ton of weapons. I think that the Kansas Wesleyan defense, all things considered, actually played a pretty solid game, forcing 2 turnovers, including 1 to end the half. They also had sacks in very, very key moments here to try and give the Coyote offense a chance. But outside of big plays of gains of 20 and that big pass to Jada Wilson, this Coyote offense just really couldn't establish a rhythm for most of the game here. So that's something to keep in mind. Versus Ottawa, this is a team that's been around here. They came out swinging big in the first half. Carrera was even missing some passes that I think she's very capable of hitting. Like, Ottawa, I don't even think was playing their best, and they still won by quite a few scores here on this Saturday afternoon. So, congratulations to Ottawa for winning their 3rd here, and I think that they're looking not only to win their 3rd KCAC tournament, but now it's time to turn all of our eyes to the national tournament here. Kansas Wesleyan has some things to work on, but this is a team that has been downtrodden a little bit for only playing in the silver bracket the past 2 years. And hopefully this Coyote team is able to make some adjustments, and hopefully we can at least see them in the gold bracket this year, have more than one KCAC team in that bracket. But, thanks to Simon's recap of the Sun Conference, that is easier said than done. The Sun Conference is looking even more competitive than it did last year, which is saying something. So it should be a very, very fun national tournament. I will be there. So if you guys want to say what's up to PMC, I'm going to be checking in there and hopefully watching a ton of games. Simon is also going to be covering some games because I know that they'll have some games happening at the same time on different fields. So, we're going to have plenty of coverage on our hands here in a few weeks. And listeners, if you're trying to tune in, be sure to find the KCAC Network webpage or the Sun Conference Network page here. And on the 18th, 19th, and 20th, tune in to this tournament. It'll be the 3rd tournament, and there will be some new faces there, and we'll see if there will be some new faces in any of the brackets or not. But a lot of these teams, a lot of them are going to be focusing on getting healthy if they didn't have a great time getting into their respective conference tournaments. And a lot of these teams have some things to kind of iron out if they want to compete and be taken a little seriously here heading into this national tournament. But it should be a great time down there in Atlanta. I'm very excited to check it out. And until next time, I've been your host for these segments, these recaps here, Cody Stoffer.
All right, now let's go ahead and talk about Playmaker of the Week here. Obviously, a lot of great performances here. It's championship weekend, basically. And so, gotta love that. I am going to pick 2 Playmakers of the Week because there were 2 different tournaments. Last year, they happened at different times. I'm pretty sure there is an episode for each. So, I picked 2 Playmakers back then for those tournaments, and so I'm going to continue with that. But I do want to talk about all the players of the games here real quick, or at least mention them. For this Thomas versus Weber game, Janae Scott was the player of the game. A pick 6, 76-yard touchdown run, can't go wrong with that. And the Keiser St. Thomas game here, Kaylee Miller had that huge touchdown, the game-winning touchdown at the end to send St. Thomas to the Sun Conference Championship. A lot of great performances in this one in general, honestly, but, Kaylee Miller at the end of the day got it done, so a lot of credit to her. Now, in the Sun Conference Championship, the player of that game, in my opinion, was Kiara Knight. 2 interceptions in this one, and 1 tough touchdown on just a great catch, honestly. She also had, a tackle, and she caught 2 receptions for 32 yards there. So there you go. But Kiara Knight, obviously, big time there. Now in the KCAC tournament here, Cottey versus USM. I mean, there were a lot of blowouts, but in this game, it was Kenzie Murdoch. Midland versus Bethel, Angel Iowanikeo. In the Ottawa versus Cottey game here, Madison Carrera, obviously. In the Kansas Wesleyan versus Midland game, I know Cody covered that one. It could have won either way. I think Angel Roman was pretty big time at the end there, along with Jada Wilson. So I'll give them both their shout out here. But in the KCAC championship, it was all Madison Carrera here. In that game, I should go ahead and pull up her stats here. She won 26 of 36 for 326 yards, 3 touchdowns, to throw 2 picks though. But also had 24 rushing yards and a touchdown in that one. Honestly, just a really sharp performance by Carrera to go ahead and win them that championship. And so with all that being said, honestly, I mean, I gotta go with the players of the game from the Sun Conference and KCAC championship games. I think it's only fair. And so I think it's week 11 Playmakers of the week is Ottawa's Madison Carrera and Thomas's Kiara Knight. So there you go there. Okay, now real quick, I do want to talk about these conference awards. Let's go ahead and start with the Sun Conference here. They were announced, I want to say, after one of these one of the first games in the Sun Conference tournament. And so let's just go ahead and let me list off everyone here first. So player of the year went to Cynthia Holmes, the sophomore from Warner, wide receiver linebacker. I mean, she had an excellent year per usual. I mean, obviously one of the best players. As a sophomore, caught for 91 passes, 1,011 yards and 18 touchdowns, while on defense had 89 flag pulls, 1 sacks and 6 picks, and also defensive touchdown as well. So there you go there. Now, offensive player of the year went to St. Thomas's Jada Graham here. Missed all of 2022, by the way, or most of it basically, and then returned. So also, you know, if there was a comeback player of the year, it would definitely go to Jada Graham. But she turned up, was big time for St. Thomas here on offense. I mean, she had 111 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. Then as a receiver, caught 72 passes for 991 yards and 11 touchdowns. And then total 20 rushing attempts for 129 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns, combining for 1,241 yards and 26 touchdowns. Now, the defensive player of the year went to Breasia Robinson here. She led a defense that tallied, well, I guess the defense tallied 30 interceptions in 15 games. She had 8 of those, returning 2 for touchdowns, and then was also tied for first on the team with 91 flag pulls and 6 pass breakups. Now, for a second year in the row, it was Thomas's head coach, Chelsea Palmer, who won Sun Conference Coach of the Year, as she should. I mean, led the team to 14-1, almost undefeated, and a regular season title, also postseason title as well. So a lot of credit to her. And then Janae Scott actually won Sun Conference Champion of Character. 2-sport athlete. Well, I knew that, but also maintaining a 4.0 GPA in her degree, or I guess in her major, not degree yet. So there you go. She is also a student mental health ambassador, which love that. On top of volunteering at a county animal shelter, serving hot meals to the homeless, and helps as an assistant coach to a youth flag team as well. So there you go there. That's wild. That's a lot, honestly. That's pretty big time, I'm not gonna lie, but that's huge. So boom, there you go. Now, looking at the all conference teams, let's talk about it. Kiana Cole from Thomas, the sophomore, made it. Quarterback, corner, receiver, running back, you know. Caleb Burrows, as a senior, made it. A wide receiver, linebacker out of Weber. Kennedy Foster Jr. out of Keiser. wideout made it. Jada Graham, quarterback, receiver, running back, athlete in general from St. Thomas made it. Cynthia Holmes at receiver for Warner made it. Jasmine Roden, quarterback from Keiser. Alexa Wilson, quarterback from Thomas. And then it says here, Sam Wilson as well, quarterback from Weber, made that all-conference first team on offense. Now, defense here, you have Brittany Delva, the grad from Thomas here, linebacker. Giselle Jones, the senior cornerback from Thomas. Kayla Burrows, the linebacker from Weber. Mayerly Keon, the junior from St. Thomas. Breasia Robinson, the linebacker from Weber. Janae Scott, the linebacker from Thomas, junior linebacker from Thomas. And then Tashumba Washington once more, the sophomore DB from St. Thomas. So there you go there. Honestly, not many surprises. I mean, I've been watching, a ton of Sun Conference games, if not at least 90% of them. And I think this is pretty on par here. Love Jada Graham winning Offensive Player of the Year. Really like her game and whatnot. And she did a lot for that St. Thomas squad, especially in this last stretch here. Breasia Robinson, I mean, super productive for Weber. And that's kind of a tough award to win. I felt like that could have went possibly a couple different ways. A lot of great defenders in the Sun Conference who I felt like were really productive as well. So, I mean, that's just me. But there you go. And that doesn't take anything away from her. I mean, she was still great. Led a great defense. A really good defense at least was the core of that. So, there you go. Now, looking at the all-conference teams, I mean, was a little surprised they took so many quarterbacks. I feel like last year they did not do that. But love seeing recognition for Jasmine Roden, Alexa Wilson, who played really good for a freshman and is the only freshman to make that all-conference offensive team. Well, really, actually, the only freshman to make the all-conference team. So, I mean, congrats to her. She's played great, and I mean, there weren't too many freshmen who really turned up on offense. You have a lot of experience here in the Sun Conference, and so for her to do that and separate herself is absolutely big time. So love seeing that. But yeah, there you go. I mean, like I said, not too many surprises. Most of them as expected, at least to me. Most of them were as expected, and just wanted to make sure we gave recognition to all these fantastic players and coaches, by the way. So just wanted to put that out there. Okay, now let's get to the KCAC awards. And before I get to the all-conference selections, I do want to talk about some of these more fun. Well, okay, I don't want to say more fun awards, but, the awards that I definitely want to recognize because, it's more than football. And starting with that is the 2023 KCAC Women's Flag Football Scholar Athletes here. So basically, to qualify, you're recognized as someone who's been excellent in the classroom, embodies the whole student athlete type of deal. And I mean, there are a lot of great athletes, which is obviously great to see. There were 23 student athletes who were named to this. And so, let's just go ahead and read off some of the things that you got to do, some of the requirements to be selected as a KCAC Scholar Athlete. And so they're all players who are at least sophomores or above in academic standing at the beginning of the semester in which they compete, which is interesting, but I get it though. And they all have to carry a minimum of a 3.250 cumulative GPA at the beginning of the semester in which they compete. So that means the spring semester. Then all these student athletes must appear on the eligibility certificate for the sport and have attended one full year at the KCAC institution to be eligible. So that explains the whole sophomore thing, I guess, which is, yeah. But let's go ahead and name off these great athletes. Mackenzie Harkins out of Bethel, a senior. Jessie McMichael from Bethel College, a junior. Elizabeth Schmucker, I want to say, from Bethel. She is a sophomore. Excuse me if I'm saying that wrong. And then from Cottey College here, you have Laurencia Botts, a sophomore. Daniela Goodrich, a sophomore. Kenzie Murdoch from Cottey, a sophomore, as expected. You also have Eunice Rodriguez, a senior, and Chandler Tall from Cottey, a senior. So that wraps up all the players from Cottey. Now at Kansas Wesleyan, we have a couple here. Alexa Mansur, a sophomore, Angel Roman, a sophomore, Alexi Marquez, a sophomore, and then you have Brianna Hernandez Silva, who is a grad student. Now going to the Midland players here, we have Casey Thompson, a senior, as well as Addison Johnson, who is also a senior, and Sydney Red, a sophomore. Now going to the players from Ottawa here, Abby Brown, a junior, Bailey Hodgins, a sophomore, Farron Malif, a sophomore, Haley McKay, a junior, Courtney Willie, a senior. And so that'll wrap up the players from Ottawa. Now from the University of St. Mary, we have Ellie Campbell, or Elle Campbell, a sophomore, NAIA Hooks, a junior, and then Jerica Johnson, a senior. So shout out to those players making it happen on and off the field. You're there for college as well. So a lot of credit to them. Now moving on to the 23 KCAC women's flag football team of character and champions of character. First off, the team, it's an award that goes to a team that is recognized for basically doing a lot for the game of football, I would say. And I mean showing great character by doing so. And so that award would actually go to the Spires, the University of St. Mary. So congratulations to them. Just to name off a couple of things that they do. And by the way, they're voted by their peer coaches. The team is voted by their peer coaches. But, here are some of the things they did. They did girls play flag football, Friday night training sessions. So multiple. The team alongside the Kansas City Glory, which is a women's tackle football team. I want to say in the WNFA. I could be saying that wrong. Excuse me. But, they're a tackle football team, pro tackle football team in Kansas City. They worked with them, put on training sessions for young area athletes to teach football skills, grow the game, and then also they were involved in Girls Play Flag Football and Girls Got Game Clinic that the team put on, which was a half-day camp for over 100 local youth athletes interested in women's flag football. So congrats to the University of St. Mary. Now then we also have our champions of character, who, it's pretty self-explanatory, just athletes who are great players that uphold these 5 core values of integrity, respect, responsibility, sportsmanship, and servant leadership at the heart of the athletics experience, is what it says. And so there were 5 players selected here. And so that is Chandler Tall from Cottey College, a senior. That is sophomore Alexa Mansur from Kansas Wesleyan. That is senior Casey Thompson from Midland. That is junior Abby Brown from Ottawa. And that is sophomore Elle Campbell from the University of St. Mary. So once more, congrats to them. Now let's go ahead and get to the all KCAC teams here and some of those awards. Ottawa would go ahead and obviously win the regular season title with an undefeated mark of 10-0 in conference play once more. Obviously would also win in the postseason as well, so they are your conference champions. But they did have a number of people recognized here. First off, Madison Carrera won Women's Flag Football Player of the Year for the 3rd year in the row. This season, she passed for 1,925 yards, rushed for 520 yards, and then scored 42 total touchdowns. That's 38 passing, 4 rushing in only 9 games, which is really impressive. And then Ottawa's Abby Brown also won KCAC Flag Football Defensive Player of the Year for the 3rd consecutive season. She had a great season, tallying 43 flag poles, and then had 7 interceptions and 5 pass breakups. And then once more for the 3rd season in a row, Liz Sowers won Head Coach of the Year. So congrats to her. Now, for Offensive Player of the Year, it actually went to Brianna Hernandez Silva of Kansas Wesleyan here for the 2nd consecutive season. Hernandez Silva passed for 2,235 yards with a 61.3% completion rate, throwing for 40 touchdowns against only 7 picks. Then on the ground, she ran for 739 rushing yards and had 12 rushing touchdowns, turning up per usual. Now, let's talk about the all KCAC teams. There are 3 teams technically, a first team, second team, and then some honorable mentions. I'm just going to go down the line here and list all of them. So first team offense here in the KCAC, we have junior quarterback Madison Carrera from Ottawa, sophomore running back from Kansas Wesleyan, Kendra Velasquez Monroe. At receiver, we have sophomore from Kansas Wesleyan, Angel Roman, junior from Ottawa, Jaslyn Camacho, sophomore from Kansas Wesleyan, Corin DeQuee. I believe I said that right. Just making sure. And then at wide receiver, junior from Ottawa, Alyssa Linkus. And then we have, this is interesting, screen blocker went to Mandolin Scalisi, a junior. And then center went to Alyssa Linkus from Ottawa. So there you go there. First team defense, though. Let's start with the linebackers here. We got junior Abby Brown from Ottawa. We have senior from Midland, Casey Thompson. And then we have linebacker, sophomore from Kansas Wesleyan here. That's Alexi Marquez. At rusher, we have Suzanne Kaufman, junior from Ottawa. And then going to the DBs here, junior from Kansas Wesleyan, Jada Wilson. Freshman from Midland, Aliyah Livingston here. Freshman from Kansas Wesleyan, Shania Marape. And then sophomore from Kansas Wesleyan, Nikayla Howard. So there you go. Oh, and then first team utility player and punt team specialist. We have Addie Orsburn from Ottawa, sophomore utility player. And then we have sophomore punter from Cottey, Kenzie Murdoch. So there you go. Now, second team here. Starting on offense, senior quarterback from Kansas Wesleyan, Brianna Hernandez Silva. Freshman running back from Midland, Jocelyn Lopez. Freshman receiver from Midland, Alyssa Butler. Senior receiver from Midland, Casey Thompson. And then freshman receiver from Midland is Olivia Dominguez Millsop. And then you also have sophomore receiver from Ottawa, Bailey Hodgins. Basically, most of that receiving core and running back was Midland. So, yeah, that's interesting. Now, at screen blocker, Kendra Velasquez Monroe, sophomore. And then at center is Kansas Wesleyan's freshman, Angel Amarez. Now, second team here, we have the sophomore linebacker from KWU. That's Alexa Mansur. The other sophomore linebacker from KWU, that's Alexis Jimenez. And then we have the senior linebacker from Ottawa, DJ Paris. Sophomore rusher from Midland, Sydney Red. Freshman DB from Midland, Diva Jones. Sophomore DB from Ottawa, Farron Malif. Junior DB from Ottawa, Nina Grave de Peralta. And then we have freshman DB from Cottey, Shamis Lee, which is very well deserving. Now, second team utility player and punter is the utility player is sophomore Angel Roman, and then the punter is Jaslyn Camacho. Now, some honorable mentions here. Quarterback Michaela Nunez, senior quarterback Michaela Nunez. You have freshman Kyla Rome here. Quarterback, running back. She played a lot of quarterback, though, but she is listed as a running back on here. And then Bethel also had sophomore center Victoria Esquivel. Now, for Cottey, freshman center Emma Bruce. From Kansas Wesleyan, you have sophomore receiver Ashley Hawthorne. From Ottawa, you have freshman receiver Tatiana Dos Santos. From Kansas Wesleyan, you have freshman receiver Jasmine Woodfield. From Midland, you have freshman receiver Emily Farron. Then from Cottey, you have freshman receiver Joliet Johnson. And then screen blocker is a freshman from Midland, Jocelyn Lopez. Now, honorable mentions here, you have Jaquel Tucker, freshman linebacker from Bethel. You have sophomore linebacker Kenzie Murdoch. You have sophomore linebacker DB Angie Cruz. You have sophomore rusher Alyssa Hollis. You have freshman rusher here from Kansas Wesleyan. It is Layla Casillan. You have senior DB Mackenzie Harkins from Bethel here. Senior DB. I think I might have said receiver, but from Bethel College Harkins. And then you have sophomore DB Angel Roman from Kansas Wesleyan, and then junior DB Haley McKay from Ottawa. And then the honorable mentions for utility and punt team specialists. You have sophomore from Cottey College Alyssa Hollis. You have senior from Midland Casey Thompson, freshman from Kansas Wesleyan Shania Marape, and then sophomore from Kansas Wesleyan Kendra Velasquez Monroe. So there you go there. I mean, like I said for the Sun Conference stuff, not too many surprises here. Well, you know what? There is one. There is Layla Casillan here. I felt like maybe she should have been a little bit higher. I know she would have taken somebody's spot. I mean, she was an honorable mention on defense here. I mean, she really went to work, especially at the end of the season. Maybe it was just too much to make up here. But, I mean, that's nothing to take away from Sydney Red here and from Suzanne Kaufman. But Layla Casillan had a really good season. She had some great games, so a lot of credit to her for sure. So there you go. But other than that, I mean, you have players and coaches winning these things, winning some of these awards 3 years in a row, 2 years in a row for Brianna Hernandez Silva. And, you know, it's a testament to how great they are, honestly. I'm not tired of it or anything, but it's definitely a testament to how great they are. And, I mean, the longevity of it all, too, which is tough to do with this high-level flag football. So there you go there. But congrats to all of these great players and coaches and people. And, yeah. Okay, speaking of great players and coaches and people, let's go ahead and talk about our 2023 Best Position Player Award candidates. We got Best Quarterback, Best Wide Receiver, Best Running Back, Best Rusher, Best Linebacker, and then Best DB. Did not do center this year just because it was like midway through the season, and I don't know, it's just going to be tough to do. A lot of moving pieces with that one, I felt, and so we're just not going to do it this year. We'll probably do it next year for sure when we are looking for those players more so than not, and obviously we're not doing special teams either. And and then the other thing was defensive backs. I mean, we just combined cornerback and safety. A lot of players lining up all over the place. I think that just makes it easier, to be honest with you, rather than, you know, splitting it into corner and safety. Even some players who are listed at linebacker play a little bit more corner than linebacker, in my opinion. So there is that. But, you know, we released, or I guess I released, a couple candidates at the midway point of the season. Since then, we've added a couple more, you know, people making suggestions to us and all of that great stuff, which we've definitely taken into mind. And we've also extended this, I guess, evaluation period to the conference tournaments. Originally, I wasn't going to do that, but we did, you know, so we're definitely taking conference tournaments into consideration here. So, you know, there might be some recency bias, but it's going to be taken into consideration regardless ahead of this national tournament. And then we'll do our next set of awards after the national tournament, I want to say. So, yeah, that's what we're going to do here. But before we talk about our finalists here, I do want to just shout out, get to talk about all the great players who we considered here. We, as in myself, Cody, and our friends at NAIA Ball. Make sure you follow those guys. You know, they do an excellent job covering flag football or women's flag football and NAIA football just in general, so make sure you check them out. We're not doing power rankings this week, as in the podcast isn't, but they are, and we sent them our votes for that. So, you know, go ahead and check out their show and episode this week, which should be a good one. So there you go there. But yeah, let's just go down the line, talk about each candidate, and then later on we'll you know, announce the finalists at each position here. And so at quarterback, we have Ottawa's junior Madison Carrera. And by the way, the stats that I took were pretty much the stats that I could find. Not every team posted their stats, like as a whole, I would say. Like some teams posted them like, I guess by game, which is not bad. I mean, they posted the box score and all that. And so basically for some squads, I took a whole day just to count up stats and whatnot. And then I also wrote out how many games those stats are from, just because, I mean, look, not everyone takes stats, which is really inconvenient, but we did the best we could here. And so the stats I'm reading off are stats just strictly from the regular season, because I kind of do feel like it is unfair to include postseason stats too. Plus, it would be a lot more to include postseason stats and go through and recount it and all that great stuff. And so this is mostly just regular season stuff, but I will mention, some of the accomplishments they did have in the postseason as I go down the line. Because like I said, we did keep it in consideration as well. But at quarterback, Ottawa Jr., Madison Carrera, no surprises here. In the regular season, which with what I counted on their website, they were one of the few teams that had their stats up there like this. But through 12 games, she passed for 2,674 passing yards, 50 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. Also had 604 rushing yards and 8 rushing touchdowns. And you might ask why the stats are different from the one I said when talking about the all KCAC team. That's because I'm pretty sure they just used her stats against KCAC competition. I'm using her stats from the entire season, out of conference play, when they made that trip to Florida to play some of those squads as well. So when I read out the stats, it's just kind of an overall thing against all the teams they played and not just in conference teams. Just keep that in mind. But there you go there. Another excellent season for Madison Carrera, who just won, the KCAC again. So there you go. And she's also player of the year and made all conference first team. Now moving on, we have Keiser Senior Jasmine Roden in 11 games here in the regular season, passed for 2,230 passing yards, 29 passing touchdowns to 8 picks, and then on the ground 59 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. As Keiser, they did have their ups and downs, but she still led them back to the Sun Conference tournament, and they're still one of the best teams out there, honestly. So there you go. Now another senior quarterback here, this time from Kansas Wesleyan, is Brianna Hernandez Silva. In the regular season, through 12 games, threw for 2,235 passing yards, 40 passing touchdowns, only 7 picks. Also on the ground, was the lead rusher out of all the quarterbacks here with 719 rushing yards and 12 rushing touchdowns in the regular season. 52 total touchdowns accounted for, and I want to say over 3,000 yards as well. Now, we have only one freshman quarterback that we really considered for this one, and she honestly earned her spot. Played through the tough times and good times, but got really good and was a big reason why they won their conference, and that is freshman Thomas quarterback Alexa Wilson. 1,979 passing yards, 24 passing touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 70 rushing yards, and 3 rushing touchdowns in about 11 games. That's how many. I had to count that up. For Thomas, I had to go game by game, box score by box score, and count that up. And so if it's not completely right, I mean, I counted through the 11 games where there were box scores available for. And so some of the games that she is missing are from their trip to Kentucky. Not the first one, but the next couple games that they played in Kentucky. So she had even more than that, honestly. And then next up, we have senior from St. Thomas, Holly Neer. Really came on late in the season, and honestly, really didn't even start until like the 3rd or 4th game of the season, if I'm correct here, which makes us even more impressive. But through about 10 games here, according at least to their stat page, she passed for 1,908 passing yards, 21 touchdowns to 9 interceptions to go ahead and earn themselves a spot here in the Sun Conference tournament. And in the Sun Conference tournament, I mean, played really well. Got them to the next round, got them really competing in the Sun Conference Championship, but, just came a couple plays a little too short here. And then next up here, we have Weber sophomore Sam Wilson. They had all their stats laid out, so big congrats to them. But they had it through 15 games, or at least for Sam Wilson, this was through 15 games, which is the most out of any of the quarterbacks here. But she passed for 2,964 passing yards, 33 passing touchdowns to 6 picks. As far as rushing goes, 151 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns. And then last but not least here, at least in for consideration, was senior from Midland, Michaela Nunez. Really had to count up the box scores and stats here because they weren't all available. So I only have roughly 8 games here. And so she definitely, ran/passed for more. But through those 8 games that I was able to find stats for, she passed for 1,714 passing yards, 22 passing touchdowns, 7 picks, and then on the ground, 287 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns. As Midland had a pretty good season in the KCAC, just came up short against Kansas Wesleyan, unfortunately. And so, that's just a tough go. And then last but not least here, we definitely considered sophomore quarterback from Warner, Madison Tingen. Unfortunately, she sustained a knee injury, and just kind of with where this quarterback competition was, none of these other quarterbacks missed a day, I don't think. And even then, Holly Neer, she didn't miss a day, but that was because she wasn't starting. And so, we had to unfortunately eliminate her from Final Four consideration about a week or 2 ago. But she had a great season leading up, and I think she would have been a lock for our Final Four if she did not get hurt. But honestly, that's just not fair to, all the players who did play the entire season. So there you go there, which is basically all our candidates here. So yeah, but those are quarterbacks. Let's move on to the next category here. We got wide receivers, and there are a lot of them. We added on a good amount here just to, have them on paper and really consider them. But, these wide receivers, and we'll talk about it more when we get to our Final Four, they had to be the best of the best. We deliberated a lot about them between myself and the NAIA ball guys. And, at the end of the day, there was going to be someone left out. So, but let's just talk about all the candidates here, starting with junior from Keiser, Kennedy Foster, through 11 games in the regular season, 54 receptions, 638 receiving yards, 10 receiving touchdowns. With Cynthia Holmes from Warner, she's a sophomore, in 9 games, and I had to count up these stats, so she definitely has more. But with what I counted through 9 games, she had 54 receptions, 492 receiving yards, and 9 receiving touchdowns. Now, I do believe I actually have her stats from the Sun Conference page here. And so it said here she caught 91 passes for 1,011 yards and 18 touchdowns. And then on defense, she did a really good job as well. And I believe those are their full season stats. So there you go there. I think it is also important to keep in mind that she did lose her quarterbacks in week 9. And so that's 3, I want to say, or 4 games that, she just didn't have a starting quarterback throwing to her. So for her to continue to produce and be up there is absolutely big time. So there you go there. And then we have Weber senior Caleb Burrows. She was absolutely electric through 15 games in the regular season. 80 receptions, 1,012 receiving yards, 15 receiving touchdowns, which obviously led all Weber receivers. And, she was a big part to their trip to the Sun Conference tournament. And in their first game, I thought she played pretty well. Unfortunately, it was a losing effort at the end of the day, but she still played really, really well to, put herself in this conversation and be one of the front runners as well, in my opinion. Now, staying with the Sun Conference receivers first, we also have junior from St. Thomas, Jada Graham, through 10 games in the regular season, had 53 receptions, 655 receiving yards, 6 receiving touchdowns, also had 131 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. I mean, she was big time for this team. I would say she was maybe a little bit more of an offensive weapon than a receiver. She was moved around a lot here. I think she is somebody that I will definitely put in for Opoi as a final candidate and whatnot. Because, I mean, she played great. She was a X factor, it felt like, for the St. Thomas squad, which was already good, but, they needed a little bit more. Just a little bit more of a bump here, and she gave them a lot of speed and, a lot of talent, and she did a great job for them this year and got them to the Sun Conference Championship as well. Unfortunately, not being able to do too much in that championship, but she did, kind of get a lot of attention in that game. Now, moving on here, we do have a couple other receivers that we kept in mind. Reinhardt, freshman Nina Johnson, unfortunately don't have her stats, but she was excellent. She played great throughout the season, through this first season for Reinhardt, and so they got a stud over there in her. Like I said, unfortunately don't have her stats there, but also, I mean, they played kind of a shorter season than everyone else, so she was unfortunately eliminated from Final Four consideration. And then we have a whole host of Thomas receivers because they all played really well here. Thomas sophomore Kiera Knight, Thomas sophomore Nakara Brown, and then Thomas senior Giselle Jones were all considered here. Let me read off their stats here. Giselle Jones had 39 receptions, 44 receiving yards, and 7 receiving touchdowns through 10 games, at least from what I was able to find. Sophomore Nakara Brown, 29 receptions, 307 receiving yards, 4 receiving touchdowns through 11 games. And then we had Thomas sophomore Kiara Knight, who really played great. 38 receptions, 398 receiving yards, and 9 receiving touchdowns through 11 games. So there you go there. Now moving back to the KCAC, they had some great receivers too. Let's start with Ottawa's 2 lead receivers here. Ottawa junior Alyssa Linkus in the regular season, 49 receptions, 621 receiving yards, 11 receiving touchdowns through 11 games. And then Ottawa junior Jasmine Camacho, 41 receptions, 649 receiving yards, 16 receiving touchdowns through 11 games, as both of them really played great, honestly, leading a really good and deep Ottawa receiving core. And so, to a degree, it kind of did take away from each other, kind of like the Thomas receivers, but both still played great enough to be considered here. Oh, and also both had excellent postseasons, or at least conference tournaments, in my opinion, as they did win the KCAC. Now, moving on, let's go to Kansas Wesleyan. They had 2 receivers that we really considered here. We have sophomore receiver Corin DeQuee. I've definitely been saying her name wrong the last couple weeks, but we'll be saying it right moving forward. But Corin DeQuee, a great season in this regular season here. 44 rushing yards, 5 rushing touchdowns to add on to her receiving stats, which are 41 receptions, 652 receiving yards, and 8 receiving touchdowns through, I want to say, around 12 or so games. And then we have Kansas Wesleyan sophomore Angel Roman. She had 47 receptions, 574 receiving yards, and 15 receiving touchdowns through 12 games. Both of them made big impacts here for their squads in the Sun Conference tournament and throughout the season. So there you go. Kansas Wesleyan being the runner-ups in the KCAC again. And then last but not least, we have a Midland senior wide receiver, Casey Thompson. I know she had more stats than this. I was only able to count stats through 8 games, but she had 42 receptions, 323 receiving yards, and 7 receiving touchdowns as the wideout one, at least in my opinion, for that Midland squad. Now at running back, things do get a little bit tricky. I feel like there were a lot of players that started out the season really strong, but just didn't have the strongest second half or postseason here. So there's that. But like I said, let me just talk about all the candidates real quick, starting with Thomas sophomore Kiana Cole. She missed a good chunk of the first half first half of the season, but honestly still had a really good second half and really good postseason, and so definitely keeping her in consideration. But through 9 games here, at least that through I was able to count, she had 58 receptions, which I believe is more than anybody else on this list, 310 receiving yards, 8 rushes for 122 rushing yards, and 6 rushing touchdowns to go with those receptions. And then she also had a couple passing yards, but we won't consider that for running back. So there you go. Through 9 games, that's Kiana Cole. Then we have Warner freshman Jenna Marrero. She got hurt and missed the last 2 games, but through the 8 games that I was able to find here and count up her stats, she had 32 receptions, 245 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown, and then 73 rushing yards on the ground as well. Through 8 games, as she was a big part of this offense before she got hurt. And then we have Keiser sophomore Emma Wagman, who was a huge part of this Keiser offense, especially in the postseason and in the second half of the season for sure here. But she had 53 receptions, 456 receiving yards, and 7 receiving touchdowns through 11 games. In my opinion, she was excellent and was always a threat to not only get you those check down yards, but maybe break one loose. You know, she had a couple of those in the last half of the season. Then we have St. Thomas freshman here, one of the only freshmen on this list, in Dominique Parks, through 7 games, 31 receptions, 225 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. I don't know if these stats really show how great she was for St. Thomas, because in my opinion, I mean, when they needed her to get into space or get a check down pass or whatever, she did a really good job. So like, a lot of credit to her. I think she was excellent throughout this season and only got better as the season went on, and especially in the postseason came up huge. And so I definitely am expecting her to be big time going into the national tournament. So there you go there. And then we also have FMU sophomore Kayla McDuffie. Unfortunately, don't have the stats for her. Couldn't find at least enough stats to count here to really make it comparable at this point. Kind of same with Campbellsville freshman Presley Payne. I mean, Campbellsville, they did not play as many games in the second half, which kind of hurt them, but Presley Payne was a bright spot for that Campbellsville squad, running the ball probably the most out of any of these running backs here. So there you go. And then we have another freshman here in Weber's freshman Jasmine Henry, 31 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, but only 16 receptions, but had 208 receiving yards and 1 receiving touchdown, unfortunately through 14 games, but she was pretty big time. I mean, I think this is another player whose stats don't really speak for what she brings to the field. I mean, Flash, she's great. She has a pretty much breakout speed, and in the only Sun Conference tournament game they played, she had some big plays, you know, and she was definitely somebody who was used a little bit more and gashed that tough Thomas defense a time or two. But altogether, just an excellent athlete and definitely somebody who, you know, maybe might not make our Final Four this year, but could be a consistent contender year by year after this. So there you go there. Now going to the KCAC, we have a couple players here. Let's start with Ottawa's junior Mandolin Scalisi, 35 receptions, 375 receiving yards, 5 receiving touchdowns through 11 games. Was a pretty big time check down valve for Madison Carrera out there, and had some big plays as well. You know, there were times where, you know, Ottawa, they had to just rely on their short game and rely on their playmakers to go make plays after that. Scalisi, she did a lot of that, you know, so she was a big part of that in my opinion. So there you go there. And then we also have Kansas Wesleyan sophomore Kendra Velasquez Monroe. Not a whole ton of stats here. 117 rushing yards, a rushing touchdown, 23 receptions for 160 yards, and a receiving touchdown through a couple games. I want to say it was at least 10 games. I feel like she really came on later on in the season. So there you go. And then we have Midland freshman Jocelyn Lopez. Unfortunately, a lot of her big games at the beginning of the season just weren't recorded through box score at all, so I wasn't able to get those. But she did a lot of damage in those games, and so fortunately just really don't have enough stats to say them right now. For it to at least be comparable, I only had stats through 4 games for her. As there were some games where she just wasn't targeted and they went in a different direction and all that. So there you go, but still an excellent athlete for Midland. Now let's go to the defensive side of the ball, starting at rusher. No surprises here. Thomas sophomore Jada Reese, through the 11 games that I counted here, probably a little bit more, obviously, but she had 22 tackles, 11 sacks, and a pass breakup. Obviously, key part to that Thomas defense. And then for St. Thomas, we have sophomore Lanai Leon. And initially didn't include her on the midway point candidates, and that was a mistake on my part. I just forgot, to be honest with you, but definitely a strong contender here. Through the 7 games, at least that they had listed, she had 22 tackles and 7 sacks and 8 pass breakups here in the regular season. In the postseason, she was big time. She really helped them win that game against Keiser, just applying constant pressure to Jasmine Roden. And then even in this Thomas game as well, she applied a lot of pressure to Alexa Wilson and did her thing there. But she's an important part of that defense. And then unfortunately, I don't have enough consistent stats here for it to be super comparable, but Florida Memorial's freshman Deja Fanning was excellent this season. I thought she did an excellent job in her first year and was, I would say, a top-tier rusher. So there you go there. Then we have Keiser sophomore Reagan Pellegrino, through 11 games, 17 tackles, 10 sacks, and a pass breakup, doing her thing in the regular season and in the postseason as well. And then technically we do have 2 more Sun Conference rushers here. Reinhardt, they will be joining the Sun Conference next year, so I just included them here. But that's freshman Carson Paget. Unfortunately, she did get hurt basically right after I released this in the mid-season, and so she'll be back for the national tournament, but that does kind of hurt her. She was great, honestly, in the regular season, just watching her and all that great stuff, and she did her thing. And then the last player rusher from the Sun Conference is Weber's freshman Jada Dillard. I feel like I probably could have put Jasmine Henry here as well, but I went with Dillard. 33 tackles, 12 sacks through 15 games. Now let's go ahead and go over to the KCAC here. Cottey freshman Kerryon Cloyd was a big-time contributor for the squad. Unfortunately, don't have the stats to go ahead and, compare it to some of these other players, at least not enough. So there you go there. But she was huge for this defense. Did get hurt for a couple games, which I think kind of hurt some of her chances here. But regardless, was a great player for them and, did a lot for this defense. And then we have Midland sophomore Sydney Red, through the 6 games that I was able to count, 20 tackles, 8 sacks, and a pass breakup. I thought she was excellent this season, a huge part of this defense, and they gave Ottawa some runs because of how well she was playing, just applying a lot of pressure, being really smart, a sure flag puller, definitely a fantastic player for Midland, and only a sophomore as well. And then we have 2 Kansas Wesleyan players, both, I believe, are freshmen in Layla Casillan, through 11 games, 28 tackles, 16.5 sacks here. And then we have the other freshman from Kansas Wesleyan, Diane Robano, 26 tackles, 13.5 sacks, 2 pass breakups through 11 games. Both of these players were big time in this latter half of the season and in the postseason. I know Robano had a couple of sacks versus Ottawa, if I wasn't mistaken there, and just played extremely well. I'm sure Casillan was out there too, she played really well as well. Just didn't quite get to the quarterback before Robano, but both of these players, kind of rotated in and out at this rusher spot, played really well and deserved to be considered here. And then last but not least, we have a couple Ottawa players. They kind of switched up. Where their players played a lot, so it was really hard to kind of just nail down one position for these players. Let me start with what I had here at the middle of the season, the candidate I announced, which was Ottawa junior DJ Paris. Through 8 games in the regular season, 32 tackles, 5 sacks. I think I also eventually included Addie Osborne, the sophomore. She had 30 tackles, 3 sacks, 5 pass breakups through 11 games. Both of them, I feel like, did not rush as much going into the second half of the season. I would in fact say Ottawa junior Suzanne Kaufman was pretty big time here with 34 tackles, 8 sacks, and 2 picks through 10 games here. Because she, I want to say, was listed as a DB to start, and it looked like she played a lot of it, but then they moved her up, especially in this last end of the season here, and in the postseason as well. Her and DJ Paris were brought up a number of times as Addie Osborne kind of got phased out in some ways there, and they also went to Lauren Clark too. So, I mean, they were all great, you know. It wasn't one great rusher for Ottawa. It was definitely a rushing group by committee that all did a good job, in my opinion, throughout this season. Now, moving on to linebacker, let's start in the Sun Conference as well, like we have been doing. Thomas Sr., Britt Delva, 43 tackles, 3 picks through 11 games in the regular season. Thomas sophomore, Janae Scott, 6 tackles, 3 sacks, 5 interceptions, 3 pass breakups through 11 games that I was able to count there. Both of them doing great for this defense all year long and have been doing that, and both being an issue. I think for these two, mostly just getting really key pulls and not allowing too many big splash plays really put a lot of teams in a bind by just letting them get 2 to 3 yard gains at most. Usually it was for no gain or for negative yards, so there's that. But both of them, some of the best flag pullers in the entire country. Then we have Ottawa junior Abby Brown. Definitely played a lot of linebacker here and was excellent for this team. Through 3 games in the regular season, 59 tackles, 7 interceptions, 6 pass breakups. I guess I am going a little out of order, but that's okay. She played really, really well here. Did win Defensive Player of the Year in the KCAC and was a huge part of this defense there. Now, going back to the Sun Conference, we have Keiser sophomore Samaya Bryant, 41 tackles, 4 tackles for loss of sack, 2 interceptions, 3 pass breakups through 11 games in the regular season. Another player who just did a good job cleaning up plays and was really smart at redirecting, players and teams and all that great stuff. And then we have more Sun Conference players here. Weber senior Caleb Burrows through 15 games, 91 tackles, 4 interceptions, 5 pass breakups. We have Weber junior Brazier Robinson, who won Defensive Player of the Year through 14 games, 91 tackles, 8 picks, 6 pass breakups. We have Warner sophomore Cynthia Holmes. Through the 9 games that I was able to count, she had 51 tackles and 4 picks, but just looking at this Sun Conference page here that just posted some of her stats, I believe this is through all the... Yeah, this had to have been through the entire season. She had 89 flag pulls, 1 sack, and 6 interceptions there. So not too far off, just assuming a couple more games were added on. And then we have St. Thomas Jr. This was a player that I added on a little bit later because she really came on here in my LEK 71 tackles, which led St. Thomas, 1 sack, 2 picks, 6 pass breakups through 10 games there. And then we had Warner's freshman Lexi Mosley, only had 8 games but had 30 tackles. I felt like she did a lot more than that. She was a great linebacker for them, I would say, in her freshman year, and just did a really good job. Unfortunately, near this latter end, this Warner team just did not play as great as a whole moving down the line. So there you go there. Now, going back to the KCAC, we have a couple Kansas Wesleyan players and Alexa Mansur. Through 12 games, she had 49 tackles, 4 picks, 8 pass breakups. We also have Lexi Marquez, sophomore. Both of these players were sophomores, but through 12 games as well, 52 tackles, 5 picks, and a pass breakup. And then we also have Midland senior Casey Thompson. I felt bad. She had a lot more games here that she obviously played, but through the 6-ish games that I was able to scramble together, she had at least 27 tackles, 2 sacks, and a pass breakup. Definitely had more, though, at linebacker, and was a big part for that Midland defense. So there you go. Now moving to defensive backs here. Remember, this is corners and safeties combined, just because a lot of these players line up in a bunch of different spots. Let's start. You know what? Let's start in the KCAC here. I only really had... Honestly, I think I really only had one. Just because I think a lot of the best DBs are in the Sun Conference, to be honest with you. And so that one was Suzanne Kaufman from Ottawa. 34 tackles, 8 sacks, 2 picks through 10 games. But, she was moved to linebacker rusher, so it was really hard to kind of just pin a position award to keep her in consideration for. It was just tough, but was the only player from the KCAC that we considered. The rest are Sun Conference players. And so let's start with St. Thomas sophomore Tashumba Washington. Through 9 games, 12 tackles, 7 interceptions, which led St. Thomas, and 10 pass breakups. We also have St. Thomas sophomore Miranda Fairdes, 61 tackles, a sack, 2 picks, 6 pass breakups through 10 games. She was big time for St. Thomas. I know she's listed at linebacker, but I feel like she was lined up a lot at corner. I watched her line up a lot at corner, so there's that. But, still keeping her in consideration for defensive backs. Then going to Thomas here, they have a couple players here. Thomas freshman Aaliyah Wood, 25 tackles, 6 picks, 2 pass breakups, 2 sacks through 12 games. Was asked to do a lot, especially in the postseason as well. She was in at rusher too, and so did contribute a lot, but got a ton of snaps at defensive back here and was great at her role just as a freshman too. We also have Thomas Senior Giselle Jones, 18 tackles, 6 picks, 3 pass breakups, 10 games. I mean, she got... I want to say she co-led in picks with Aaliyah Wood, and she was just uber productive for them. And then I was considering Thomas sophomore Kiara Knight, 11 tackles, 3 picks through 11 games. I mean, she was excellent and was excellent in the postseason, one Playmaker of the week here. But, playing safety, you're not always going to get a ton of those picks, especially if your corners have... or 2 of your corners have 12 interceptions between the 2 of them. So there you go there. But still a big part of this Thomas defense. And then let's go ahead and go to Keiser. Had a couple players that I was considering here in Junior Kennedy Foster, whose stats weren't super great. 9 tackles, a pick, 4 pass breakups through 11 games, but was a really good cover corner for them, cover DB for them in general. And then we also have Keiser sophomore Sydney Woodman. Missed some games here, but through 10 games, 24 tackles, 2 picks, and 7 pass breakups. Still a big part of that Keiser defense that was pretty solid and pretty consistently good throughout the season. So there you go there. And then, I also missed, this player from St. Thomas and Junior Jada Graham. Only listed 14 tackles through 10 games, but I feel like at the beginning of the season, she was really turning up and doing her thing there. And then we also have Florida Memorial sophomore Erica Johnson. She was great. Unfortunately, don't have enough stats to talk about at least, and compared to some of these other players, but she was great for them, getting a lot of turnovers for them, I want to say. So there you go, for a second year in a row. And then, I'm just all over the place, but Thomas sophomore Nakara Brown was also considered, 24 tackles, a sack, 2 picks through 11 games. And yeah, and then since I'm already kind of off the rails here, there was actually one other player from the KCAC that I kept in mind, and that was Kansas Wesleyan freshman Shania Marape, 28 tackles, 3 sacks, 2 picks, 7 pass breakups through 9 games played. So there you go there. She was big time as well as a freshman. And then speaking of freshmen, we have our last candidate here in Weber freshman Caitlin Sigmundy, 14 tackles, 5 interceptions, 4 pass breakups through 14 games. Really held it down at that safety spot back there for Weber and did a good job throughout the season. Okay, that was a lot, but let's go ahead and talk about the finalists here. And before I do that, though, I do want to talk about how voting is going to work. So myself and Kodey will have 2 votes. Our friends at NAIA Ball will have 2 votes, so that's 4 total. And then, up to now. And then you, the fans, will be able to vote. Go ahead and vote on our Twitter account. Those polls will be up sometime on Monday, and those polls will run from Monday to Friday. So go ahead and check that out so that you could vote here. And let me make sure I have a specific date. So they'll go up May 1st and will be up until around May 5th, probably closer to at night or so. So there you go there. Make sure you vote on our Twitter, and then we'll announce winners on next week's episode. That'll just basically be an award show episode. So there you go there. Now, let's talk about our finalists here, the 4 that you will be able to vote from, and same with us. Starting at quarterback, Ottawa Junior Madison Carrera. I mean, I think that's an obvious one. She's locked in, won her conference, played great. As far as stats go, statistically, leads all quarterbacks in pretty much almost all stats except for rushing yards and rushing touchdowns. That'll actually go to fellow KCAC quarterback, Kansas Wesleyan senior Brianna Hernandez Silva. You know, she led the country with as far as quarterbacks went, with 719 rushing yards and 12 rushing touchdowns, also adding on 2,235 passing yards and 40 passing touchdowns, only 7 picks. I mean, this Kansas Wesleyan offense pretty much ran through her, and she did a great job for them. Now, the last 2 quarterbacks are quarterbacks from the Sun Conference. Let's start with the senior here, Keiser senior Jasmine Roden. Like I said, not another big surprise here. 2,230 passing yards, 29 touchdowns, and also added 3 rushing touchdowns through 11 games. Led one of the better offenses in the entire country, still in my opinion. So there you go. Those are your 3 finalists, but there is one more finalist. We do 4 for each category, and we went back and forth. Between Weber sophomore Sam Wilson, St. Thomas Jr. Holly Neer, and Thomas freshman Alexa Wilson here. Just looking at key games and their contributions and all that stuff. But, you know, we really looked at this Sun Conference tournament and who really separated themselves. And in our honest opinion, Thomas freshman Alexa Wilson was that quarterback through the regular season. 1,979 passing yards, 24 passing touchdowns, 210 interceptions, but also had 3 rushing touchdowns on the ground through only 11 games. But in the postseason, I mean, she stepped it up. In that game against St. Thomas, she had some good throws and really good decisions, played really sharp, which is what you need from your quarterback, no matter how good your team is. At the end of the day, your quarterback has to be on point, and she has to make plays and get your team in a position to win, and that's what she did, you know. And so we feel like she's very deserving of the spot. Super talented player, the only freshman, the only underclassman to be a finalist for the best quarterback award, but definitely somebody who, you know, should be considered for this. And so she is a finalist. And so there you go, your 4 quarterbacks to vote from for the best quarterback award here in 2023 is Ottawa's junior Madison Carrera, Keiser senior Jasmine Roden, Kansas Wesleyan senior Brianna Hernandez Silva, and then freshman from Thomas, Alexa Wilson. So there you go. Now moving on to wide receiver. This one was really hard. Let's go ahead and start with the ones that were pretty much locked in here, starting with Keiser Jr. Kennedy Foster. 54 receptions, 638 receiving yards, 10 receiving touchdowns through 11 games. I mean, at this point in the season, like a lot of these receivers, she's played since the first season that flag football has been around, and so she's going to naturally garner a lot of attention, a lot of, you know, double teams, brackets, all that stuff, and she was still able to put up 10 receiving touchdowns and 638 yards, and also grab 54 receptions too, which was absolutely huge. Going on to another senior here, Weber senior Caleb Burrows. She was excellent throughout the season. Like I said, another player who was going to be well covered a ton throughout this season, but still played well. Got a lot of yards after the catch, I would say, too, just making plays. But Caleb Burrows, 80 receptions, 1,012 receiving yards, 15 receiving touchdowns through 15 games in the regular season. And then the first underclassman we have is Warner sophomore Cynthia Holmes here. Let me go ahead and just read off what they listed her having here on the Sun Conference page. But she caught 91 passes for 1,011 yards and 18 touchdowns. Continuing to be a weapon for Warner out there. Do keep in mind that she did lose her quarterbacks, both of them, her backup or her starter and her backup, in the last couple weeks of the season. So that was about 3 or 4 games where she did not have her starting quarterback, which is something that the rest of these quarterbacks can't really say. But, she played excellent for Warner here and is definitely another player that we had to lock in. And so at this point, that leaves pretty much one spot with 5 players that we were really taking a look at and considering. And so let me list those 5 players just real quick here. Angel Roman was a big one from Kansas Wesleyan. Corin DeQuee from Kansas Wesleyan as well. And then the Ottawa receivers, Alyssa Linkus and Jaslyn Camacho. For going back to the Sun Conference, for Thomas, sophomore Kiara Knight. She had 9 receiving touchdowns and I want to say was the leader in receiving touchdowns for that squad. Also had 398 receiving yards as well. And then we had St. Thomas receiver junior Jada Graham, who had 53 receptions, 655 yards, and 6 receiving touchdowns. Also 3 rushing touchdowns through 10 games here. So yeah, that's like more than 5 players to consider for one spot. And so I really kind of, I don't want to say I deferred, but I talked about it over a lot with the NAIA F-ball guys and Cottey. And so this is what we are going to do, but we feel like Kansas Wesleyan sophomore Corin DeQuee deserves this last spot here. First off, 5 rushing touchdowns to add on to her total, but 41 receptions, 652 receiving yards, and 8 receiving touchdowns, which is up there for sure. Through only a couple games, through like 10 or 11 games, I want to say, which, was big time. Or actually, I believe it was through 12 games, I want to say. But it was definitely big time. I mean, she made a lot of plays, and I think the thing that really kind of won us over were her plays in the postseason, in the tournament, versus Midland, versus Ottawa. She stepped up and did a good job and did her thing out there. That's not to say that Alyssa Linkus, Jaslyn Camacho didn't, but obviously you also have, receivers like Tatiana Dos Santos, Bailey Hodgins, also a great receiver, great quarterback, and Madison Carrera, arguably the best in the entire country throwing you the ball. So it was kind of tough to pick an auto receiver there. And then really at the end of the day, it became, I guess, a battle between Corin DeQuee and Jada Graham here, because they have pretty similar stats as far as, as far as the regular season goes, they do. But, I mean, Jada Graham, she just had a real tough championship game. I think if she turns up just a little bit more here, then maybe, she would have edged out Corin DeQuee. But this was just a tough call. We just had to go with best receiver and whatnot. Jada Graham, I will say this, is a player that we are probably for sure going to consider for Offensive Playmaker of the Year, because we didn't include her passing stats really. Because, I mean, you're a receiver, so I don't think that's fair to include your passing stats. But, keeping those in mind and her time at quarterback, I think that definitely puts her in the Opoi conversation, which, that's a whole argument. But, we talked about it, and I think as a group, that is a player that, we decided on. And so there you go. Your final four at receiver here is Keiser Jr., Kennedy Foster, Warner sophomore, Cynthia Holmes, Weber senior, Caleb Burrows, and then Kansas Wesleyan sophomore, Corin DeQuee. So there you go. Now, moving on to running back here. This was another tough one, but we had to go ahead and get it down to 4, which was a little bit easier, considering some things and some stats near the end of the season and the postseason. But Thomas sophomore Kiana Cole, even though she missed a ton of games, she is locked in as a finalist for this one. Had a really strong second half of the season and postseason. Even not considering her passing stats as well, she was one of the top running backs in the entire country. Like I said, I am pretty sure she led the entire country as far as running backs go in receptions. She had 58. She also had 310 receiving yards and then also 6 rushing touchdowns, which I want to say those 6 rushing touchdowns also led the entire country. So there you go there. And then Warner freshman Jenna Marrero, she did get hurt these last 2 games and did not have any postseason games to look at here. But in the regular season, 32 receptions, 245 receiving yards, a receiving touchdown, also 73 rushing yards. And then we're not going to include her passing stats here, but still put in a lot of work in and was a big part of this Warner offense, and I think she deserves to be considered there. And then Keiser sophomore Emma Wagman. This is kind of another, I think she was one of the few no-brainers here for sure. She played the entire season. She had excellent stats, 53 receptions, 456 receiving yards, 7 receiving touchdowns. Led the entire country as far as running backs go in receiving yards and I think receiving touchdowns as well, as she was excellent. Now there's the last spot here. It was another toss-up between St. Thomas freshman Dominique Parks, Ottawa junior Mandolin Scalisi, and then I would say Weber freshman Jasmine Henry here. But as it went on, Jasmine Henry, she had a really strong postseason, but I guess she just wasn't used as much here in the regular season, which did kind of hurt her. Her postseason performance, I felt like, really helped her out here. Then Ottawa junior Mandolin Scalisi, she did a lot, obviously, for this team, but also this is another squad that was extremely stacked, and so she was able to get a lot of receptions because a lot of attention had to have been paid to some of those great receivers out there. She had 35 receptions, 375 receiving yards, 5 receiving touchdowns. And then we have Dominique Parks. She really came on here in the latter half of the season and the postseason. And so at the end of the day, we actually went with Dominique Parks. First off, in the regular season, as far as finalists go, played the least amount of games, was 7 games, but still had pretty comparable stats with 31 receptions, 225 receiving yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. And she was great in the postseason as well. Found space really well, was a great check down option. So there you go. Your finalists for running back, best running back, is Thomas sophomore Kiana Cole, Warner freshman Jenna Marrero, Keiser sophomore Emma Wagman, and St. Thomas freshman Dominique Parks. Now, moving on to rusher here. Once again, we have it's mostly dominated by the Sun Conference at this position, as there are a lot of great players here, just in general in the entire country. But I felt like Sun Conference, it was really hard to rush, especially when you have quarterbacks, throwing it quick and having all these double passes and all this stuff. And so I think we really leaned on that when making our decisions here. But Thomas sophomore Jada Reese, I think, should be an easy walk in there. She played great throughout this season and postseason. Always a big part of that Thomas defense. And then St. Thomas player NAIA Leon, like I said, I forgot her when we talked about mid-season candidates. Did not mean to. She was really picking it up there in the mid-season and really just got stronger as the season went on through the end and the postseason as well. NAIA Leon, another strong candidate and definitely somebody who really should be locked in here. So there you go, 2 players, which I don't think there are any questions about them being locked in. And then we decided to go with Reagan Pellegrino. I would say maybe not the biggest postseason, but in the regular season, especially near the end, she went crazy. So Keiser sophomore Reagan Pellegrino makes it as a finalist. 17 tackles, 10 sacks, 1 pass breakup through 11 games. And as always, applying pressure, doing her thing there. And then there's the last spot here. We went back and forth, but I think we all really felt good about this. We didn't go as back and forth on this as we did with some other players, but Kansas Wesleyan freshman Layla Casillan, in our opinion, deserved this last finalist spot. First off, 28 tackles, 16 and a half sacks through 11 games. Had a strong second half of the season, had a pretty good postseason as well, we would say. And so, I think there's no doubt about it. We had to consider her. I mean, through 11 games, 16 and a half sacks. I mean, not everyone had, I guess, full stats throughout the season. They didn't take stats for every game. Kansas Wesleyan did a good job by that, but even comparing her to some other players, she just did a really good job. And so, even though in the KCAC they may not have as strong of a competition out there, we really felt like Layla Casillan, having the most sacks, that's really hard to argue with. Most sacks not only in the conference, but in the country, at least with the stats we have in the regular season. So there you go there. So your final four at rusher: Thomas sophomore Jada Reese, St. Thomas sophomore Lanai Leone, Keiser sophomore Reagan Pellegrino, and Kansas Wesleyan freshman Layla Casillan there to round it out. First off, I think this is our only position with all underclassmen as finalists, so that's insane. They're all definitely there to stay. Now, going to linebacker, this one was pretty tough here. We really relied on the postseason, to be honest with you. And so, let's start by locking in the easy ones. I think Ottawa junior Abby Brown absolutely deserved to be a finalist here, and so there you go. 59 tackles, 7 interceptions, 6 pass breakups through 12 games in the regular season, and then in the postseason did her thing as well, helping lead that squad to a KCAC conference title. Now, the other players here, I think the other one that's for sure locked in is Thomas sophomore Janae Scott. Through 11 games, 68 tackles, 3 sacks, 5 picks, 3 pass breakups. She was a menace throughout this entire season. The number of pick sixes she had, the number of big-time tackles she had, the number of big, just passes that she was able to tip up in the air and were eventually intercepted by someone else, happened a lot. She was a huge part for that Thomas defense, and just was super productive too. And so I think those two were for sure locked in here. Now, it might be a little controversial, a couple players here that we really had to consider, but stats aren't really everything, I would say. And I think our NAIF ball friends and Cottey would definitely agree with that. And so we went with some different players here. I think first off, Thomas senior Britt Delva, she deserves to be on this list. 43 tackles, 3 picks, only through 11 games here, but really did a lot. Would drop into coverage a lot as well. Did a lot in the passing game. Then obviously, when it came to the short stuff, she was just as important as Janae Scott in the postseason. She had some clutch pulls. The one I think of is the one where I believe she helped corral Tashumba Washington on that 4th down situation and stopped her from getting the first down. That was big time. And she's been a big time player for this Thomas team. She's been a veteran. We absolutely have to consider her here. So there you go there. And then the last one is going to be Keiser sophomore Samaya Bryant. 41 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, a sack, 2 picks, 3 pass breakups through 11 games in the regular season. She is somebody that is really underrated. And I think with this, she's not going to be underrated anymore, honestly. But she played great throughout the entire season. Had a strong second half of the season. Had a solid, she did a good job in the one postseason game that they played as well. I felt, she did it all for this Keiser team. And I feel like was a very underrated glue player for this squad. But, we all felt like she deserved to be here. That Keiser defense has always been strong. And, having a player over the middle like Samaya Bryant really held it together for that team. And that's tough because that's not including players like Kayla Burrows, Raja Robinson, Cynthia Holmes, Mayerly Keown, who all played extremely well and were all considered here for this spot. A lot closer than you would think. And at the end of the day, it's just not all about stats. It's about how well you actually play, too, when it counts and all that. So, we had to include Samaya Bryant here, who I think just played excellent. So there you go. Maybe a little controversial. Who cares? Those are your finalists. Thomas Sr., Britt Delva. Thomas Sophomore, Janae Scott. Ottawa Jr., Abby Brown. And then Keiser Sophomore, Samaya Bryant. Now, moving on to defensive backs here. This became really easy to pick from, especially as the postseason went on. But let's start with the players that are kind of locked in here, or pretty much were already locked in going into the postseason. St. Thomas sophomore Tashumba Washington, easily. So there you go there. And then a couple of Thomas defensive backs were considered, but we knew we probably had to pick two because that's how great they were playing. So let's start with Thomas Sr. Giselle Jones. 18 tackles, 6 picks, 3 pass breakups through 10 games in the regular season. I felt like she was amazing. She was really cleaning it up on the back end there, making teams pay for, trying them deep. There were a couple plays throughout the season where they just went one-on-one. They threw the one-on-one ball, and she beat the receiver, a lot of the time. And she was just excellent. So there you go there. And then Thomas freshman Aaliyah Wood. She's been sensational here. Just a really good cover corner. And, did play some other positions, especially in this postseason as well, but still lined up at DB. And so she had 25 tackles, 6 picks through 12 games. So just excellent there. And then this last player, I kind of debated between... I debated with putting her here and then maybe another player from another program, to be honest with you, just because, at this point, only 2 programs were going to be represented here in this defensive back best DB award here, but I think we absolutely have to go with this one here, and that's St. Thomas sophomore Miranda Fairdes. 61 tackles, a sack, 2 picks, 6 pass breakups, 10 games. Like I said, listed at linebacker, but lined up a lot at DB in my opinion, and so I had to pick her over some of these other players, but she really had a great end to the season and a really good postseason as well, and so I think that kind of just sealed the deal for us there with how great she played. So there you go. Your finalists at defensive back is St. Thomas sophomore Tashumba Washington, St. Thomas sophomore Miranda Fairdes, Thomas freshman Aaliyah Wood, and Thomas senior Giselle Jones.
Okay, now that'll be it. Thank you so much for rocking with us here, and thank you to Cottey for going ahead and helping me out on some of these. I guess I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit of something from me here, just because I don't think nobody really listens to these outros here, but I definitely hurt my ankle badly, to be specific here. I'm not really mobile at all, so any chance of me wanting to go to Atlanta, well, I want to go, but I can't. I definitely can't be walking around. I can't walk anyways. I'll be probably on crutches, if anything, and that's just not going to be great. So I'll hold it down here. We'll still do our coverage of women's flag football, but I just want to say thank you to Cottey for helping me out. It's been a really busy weekend. I was just, honestly, just really grinding to get this thing done. It's pretty late. It's pretty late over here, but, regardless, just thank you so much for the patience. We'll continue to cover women's flag football here. We do have, I guess, a 1 week break here, but that's going to be for the poll. So make sure you go ahead and vote. They will be on Twitter. Obviously, I think you need a Twitter account to vote and whatnot. We thought there might be some issues there, but I think we're good. So go ahead and vote there for the best position players. Next week will kind of be our award shows. We'll go ahead and talk about all the players who made, what should I say, who won an award, and, all the candidates. And I think next week as well, we'll release all Playmaker and all freshman teams. And then we're going to eventually do an MVP Opoi Freshman of the Year Depoy as well. But we're going to do that after the tournament. So we'll have a final list, like a finalist list. No, that's weird. Whatever. After the tournament, it'll probably be on that recap, and we'll go from there and do all that great stuff. And if things change, then tune in next episode and you'll see why. But thank you so much for rocking with us. Show some love on social media. We really appreciate it. Leave a like, comment, whatever. Good rating if you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever. We really appreciate those. And you know what? We will see y'all soon. Peace.